What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Scrap Time. I am your host, Ben Nissim, and we are joined again by our esteemed panel as we build towards the start of the CDL season. There's only one more weekend left before we get going. We got Thanksgiving weekend, and we get back, and that's the first match week. So, as always, we've got to my right, multiple world champion, award-winning coach, massive Eagles and Saquon fan, Mr. JKap. We'll get to Saquon a bit. Below, we have a person who is not a fan of Saquon Barkley because he lost to him in 3 different matches this week. Also, multi-event champion, award winner, AR Turd himself. And I know he's got a lot to say about GAC. We got Mr. Sam Octane.
Thank you so much. World champion, don't forget.
Yeah,
not multi-world champion, just a baby-ass one, though.
Yeah, you won. Yeah, but at least got one. You know, Tommy just got 0, so, you know.
Jesus.
I'm only saying that because he's probably watching and probably losing full. Anyway, and then to my bottom right, we got the GOAT. From Bucket Sports, the absolute betting icon. My guy is always looking at angles when it comes to hockey every day, even though I hate watching my hockey team these days because they're fucking terrible. Got my guy Chelly. What's good, man?
What's good, boys?
I want to start with you, Chelly. Like, you know, we're hanging at Thanksgiving weekend, which is always like an interesting, fun time in the sports world. Like any matchups you're looking forward to? Any sporting matchups that you watched the last couple of days that?
I mean, that Cowboys-Commanders game was probably the craziest game of football I've ever seen personally, like live. Lost. They literally both lost. I don't think the Cowboys care about.
As an Eagles fan, I love it. My hero. That's what I got out of that.
That guy's gross. That kick return was insane. But no, I mean, this Thanksgiving, what am I to look forward to? There's literally horrible games on. Tommy DeVito, Cooper Rush. I mean, I'm gonna fall. That nap is gonna be generational.
What's the last game?
Dolphins, Packers.
Oh man,
I'm seeing a movie. I'm seeing a movie during that time. Like
that's a good game.
It is, but I fear I will be about 4 or 5 beers in and going.
Whoa, Ben's getting turned.
Maybe more. We'll see.
4 or 5 beers.
What kind of beers?
I don't know yet. We'll see what's available when I end up
in my couch over there, Ben J.
I think I'll be fine, Cap. I don't think I need your advice, but I appreciate you looking out for me.
Okay.
It's at Lambeau. I remember it's Lambeau because they were doing promos this weekend with like John Madden talking about how much he loves going to Lambeau, and I was in a call with Clay, and Clay's like, "Oh man, everybody should go to Lambeau Field at least once. It's just a great place." Blah blah blah. And I'm like, Cap, or I'm like, Clay, bro, it's a cool stadium, but it's in Green Bay, brother. Like,
they have a lot of like bleacher seating too. Like it's not the most comfortable experience from what I've heard.
Oh, hate that.
Well, that's why I don't go to many Ohio State games because you get these bleachers have squeezed over time. Kelly, you're still echoing a little bit if you want to turn on the other echo setting.
Yeah, got it.
And just check your noise gate. But like, bro, what they do with these bleacher seating, these stadiums, is they've slowly reduced like the width of the seats to add more seats. You just get there and you're just fucking squeezed. And especially in college stadiums where people have like season tickets and they get those like permanent like seat cushions installed, like those are too wide for the fucking actual width of the seat, and it's just a miserable experience.
This is a good Ben J rant about the fucking bleacher seating.
No, it's the worst shit, bro. If anyone's no. If anyone's watching, and especially if they go to like college games, you don't sit in like the student section. Like you'll know what I'm talking about, bro. I went to like last year. I went to like an Ohio State Notre Dame game. It was a lit game. And it was a great game. Bro, where we sat in, we were like the end of a row, and we were getting like squeezed off the edge of the bleachers.
I mean, yeah, I feel like you're not supposed to sit down though. Like, it's the whole point of the bleachers is that the students stand.
But when you're in the top of fucking, we're not in the student section. We're in fucking C deck in like a corner. We're not in the student section.
And you're still squished.
Yeah,
badly. That's insane.
Yeah, because people have those seat cushion things, and they're fucking like way too wide. I think it's part of the issue, and obviously in specifically the Ohio Michigan problem, I think they have like slowly added seats over time in that race with each other to have the biggest attendance, and like, you know, it may be pushing the limits of what they can do there, is what I'm saying.
Sure.
But anyway, I am not looking forward to the Giants game this week. I hope we lose, although if we lose, then I have to pay my friend Adam $50, I have to pay Nameless $50. So it's a trade-off between
that's the blow it up over.
Lose 100 or lose, and then we tank for the first pick.
I hope Tyron Tracy rushes for 200 yards.
What's more important, you bet the $100 or the first pick potential?
The first pick potential, probably. I can sacrifice the 100.
The future of the franchise.
The future of the franchise over the 100 beans. I mean, we should have won the first one and we got hoed by the refs, but you know, it is what it is. Like, just shit fucking refereeing every time we play the fucking Cowboys. But I would say I'm looking forward to the Rangers games this week, but the Rangers are ass like right now. The Knicks are playing good though, so I'm happy. Happy we're feeling it out. But let's enough sports talk. We'll keep yapping. Probably once you get to the playoffs, it's gonna be pretty fun to yap about the fucking NFL. But I want to talk a little about some COD topics, and we're gonna break down. We got like 8 teams to cover, so we got a lot to get through. I want to do at the offset, talk about what is a big pressing topic going on in the COD world, but we've talked a lot about it, so I don't want to spend too much time. But I wanted to give everybody a platform, a little therapy session, as you will, to vent about rank play in GAs. So I'm gonna start with you, Sam. I'm going to give you like a minute to just get whatever you want to say off the chest on these issues. We'll all go around and feel better after this event session.
1 minute, huh?
I mean, if you want to take longer than a minute, go ahead.
Rank play is an embarrassment. It's completely unplayable. They put it out early for no reason, and they said they banned hackers and didn't. Ricochet's a farce. It never existed. GAs are comical. Tommy's done what he can. We've had pros come on in a public forum and at least try to make progress, but they're all inept. No progress is made whatsoever. All of the arguments presented against snipers and Saug and everything, they haven't brought one feasible argument to the table that stands the test of being tested. It's all bad, bro. It's just closed-mindedness. It's unwilling to advance the scene for the good of the entire game and competitive Call of Duty as a whole. Everything's bad lately. Not to be a doom and gloom, but yeah, there's my minute.
Jesus. TDL's over. You heard it here from Octane.
Yep.
Dead.
Yeah, Tab, do you want to go next? You want me to tap Chelly? Do you want to get the last word?
Yeah, I'll go. Right play stinks. Sam hit the nail on the head. Absolute embarrassment. I think we all agree there. The GA topic I find interesting because I don't really have an opinion on the GAs anymore. I really don't care. Especially even when I was coaching, I hardly cared. Now that I'm not coaching, I literally could not care less. But playing devil's advocate here, I think it's very interesting how, I think the fans just kind of like the hive group mentality of pressuring the players to use everything because it is more entertaining. But the flip side of that is as a player, you want the game to be as competitive as possible. And I don't know. Again, I don't care. Let me make that clear. But the counter argument to use all this shit, it's more entertaining is there actually any evidence that there's more viewers because there's a sniper? Are there going to be more viewers because there's a knife? Are people really going to care more? I don't know if there is. And I think from the player point of view, you want the game to be as competitive as possible. And so the argument against snipers on that is I saw the clip of TJ roasting Beans and
yeah.
TJ words it terribly because he's TJ Haley.
Yeah.
Love him, but he's TJ Haley. But the point he makes is actually I agree with is the sniper in S&D makes it so a bad S&D player can just be useful, just hit a shot, which these top pro players, they can hit shots. It's not too difficult. And it's all of a sudden these bad players are very useful in search. And it takes away from that. We kind of touched on it last time, but it takes away from that team aspect of search and destroy of 4v4 executing with teamwork, baiting and switching, all that stuff. So
but couldn't you argue the other way that it would then require teamwork the other way in order to counter the sniper?
How?
That still adds a skill gap to it.
The thing about a sniper is if he holds a lane and especially if there's no smokes, because smokes are one-wayable. If smokes are one-wayable, they have to be GA'd. That whole
smokes
discussion.
Are out. Smokes are busted.
I know. I'm just saying. So with no smokes, cross lines of sight. The thing with a sniper is if he picks a lane to watch and he guesses right, bang, he's you're dead. There's not really is there really teamwork to get around that?
I mean, but you're assuming in this world that players are going to hit 100% of their shots, and Tom did
that's the thing is they hit most of them.
Here was my position on a cap was I think what they should have done with snipes is they should have let it run for a stage, and if it was clear that after that first stage that snipers were too OP, then you remove it. The problem is that thing got GA'd after people, Sam, you were mentioning some people had just had one S&D scrim sesh. That to me is just removing it just to try and get an edge on the competition without actually testing to make sure it's really that busted. What?
I mean, yeah. The thing with that is like I was saying, pros want the game to be as competitive as possible. They don't want to like use a stage as this trial period. Like, oh yeah, let's just test it for a whole stage. Like that's a good portion of the year. There's hundreds of thousands of dollars up on the line for that stage. Like, people don't want to just like waste that time. Like the COD season's only 8 months long, really, these years now. Like, wasting a whole stage is a lot of time. Like I said, I really don't care. I'm just trying to present the counterpoint to what seems to be the majority of fans who are just like, oh yeah, snipers in, smokes in, like all this shit in. Like, that's kind of the pros mindset. And I don't know if people made that case, but I think that's the best way I can word it, like to play devil's advocate here, like I said.
That's not really the argument though this year. I think a lot of the fans' issue lies with like the stuff that could be argued to be in. Like, nobody cares that the Craig is out. Like that stuff's clearly not balanced at all.
Is the main one the sniper though?
The sniper and the Saug are the two.
Okay, well,
where, like,
Saug, from what I've seen, I don't think is overpowered. I think that is a little crazy.
It's not.
But the sniper, the concept of a sniper in COD it's basically the same conversation every year, in my opinion. So it's just like it's that same logic that I was trying to explain. But I mean, it is what it is. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we've been beating a dead horse on other platforms about the argument, so I don't want to dig too deep into it right now. But I mean, it's just
you guys have been in the weeds.
Yeah, my frustration lies in the fact, Cap, that like every time, which, you know, shout out to the players that have come publicly forward and like brought their opinions, like Ken, Ghosty, Scrap, Slasher, like all these guys that are willing to actually have a conversation, I appreciate. But all of the things that they have brought forward in arguments against sniping, they're all horrible arguments, frankly. Like I know it's good. It's like a meme and it's a very small sample size, but like they were preaching that like playing rewind search, if someone's going to snipe the cross on the street, is the word was impossible was used. You can't cross. And granted, it's Tommy and Dan, but like, bro, Tommy was just running across, diving, sliding. Like, when snipers are brought up and argued against, the people that are arguing against them are always using like they're speaking in absolute facts. Like, if there is a sniper on the map, he's gonna hit the shot. And that, bro, I sniped for 10 years. I had games where I couldn't hit shit. Like, there's timings on the cross. There's ways to navigate around it. There's pre-nades. There's so many things that need to be factored into it. And I disagree with Ben's take about the whole stage, but there are votes that are happening based on less than 5 search scrims played with the snipe. They're just doing it based on if they want to fucking die in one bullet or not. Has nothing to do with the viability of it in this specific instance.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Like I said, I don't really care like for the specifics of rewind, or I just think, like I said, that didn't do
their homework to me. That's what pisses me off. They didn't come to the table with a valid argument, and that's what makes me mad.
That is definitely. I mean, that's always an issue. That's been an issue since the start of odd and GAs. It's just always the same thing where, you know, people want instinct, like instinctively just want something out because it doesn't work for them the first few times. So.
Yep. I think we can put a pin in that. We've talked. If you guys want to see more GA combos, like there's plenty of a lot of us talking about.
There's a lot on YouTube.
I made a whole fucking presentation. Like I'm over it, bro.
Yeah, I feel like I can kind of provide like a unique perspective on this, just as someone who's newer to the scene. Just real quick before we move on, I feel like it's kind of important to hear. Obviously, you guys have been involved in Call of Duty for, years and years. And just being newer to the scene, it just feels like a lot of the players are kind of just being selfish. Like GAs used to be something like if a gun was like the Krig, like if it needs to go, it needs to go. Like let's GA it. But I feel like now that you guys are actually calling them out on their bullshit, being like, yo, but give me a reason why. It's like, as someone looking on the outside in on this entire situation, it's like, why has that not always been a thing? Why have they not always had to tell you why?
Because in the past, it was a different player base running things, and it was in good faith. Like we were talking before the podcast about World War II and how all the ARs, like me, Lamar, Zinni, like we would GA the FG42 because we just understood that shit, like it didn't need to be there. Like it was genuinely like a different guard in COD that understood like there are things that could be used that aren't going to break the game, and there are things that we absolutely cannot use, and it was in good faith. And now there's so much personal bias that I no longer think that that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad to see because I think Ben made the point that you should just let these guys play for one split and then make the decision because I mean five S&D games and you're telling me the sniper's impossible to cross on rewind, like, bro, that's
that like again, that's just what made me angry about it. It was they were using absolutes. Like if there was a sniper on this part of the map, you couldn't play the game anymore, and that's never been the case. And even in the best version of the snipers, that's never been the case. Like you got to hit that shot, and yeah, people are pro players, and they're better than 99.9 to the upteenth power. They're better than everyone else, but like that shot's still hard as fuck. I sniped for my team for 10 years, and there were games that I couldn't hit a single shot. So to speak in absolutes about the worst version of the snipe on some of the worst maps for snipe, I don't agree with it.
Well, let's move on. I don't want to spend too much time on GAs. We got a lot to cover. I want to quickly touch on before we get to the team preview. I want to talk about the last Challengers Cup. The first Challengers Cup of the season just happened, and you're gonna see some names that won here. Really, I don't think much of a shocker in these regions. Obviously those Latin American guys have been around for a while. They kind of appear champs, and it's tough in that region. Obviously, Shock's fight at Crimsy and Setsi still being out there competing in APAC is big, but the more focused regions, really not surprised to see Ben and his team getting ahead early. And obviously, Kyler's team has been, I heard, probably the best Challengers team off the rip and have been just kind of thralling people. So, here's what you guys think about this list. Probably no surprises. You probably think a couple of these players maybe going to be in consideration to hop on some teams after Major 1, you would think?
I mean, yeah, if they stay on top.
Yeah.
Usually how it goes. First ones to get a chance.
Yeah, I mean, they're just names that you guys are all used to. And I think that the gas that Kyler's been getting on Twitter is unbelievable. Like his PR has been insane this year, so I'm sure that he'll end up somewhere as probably the first pickup. I mean, like I said, who was it? Huke, Spark, Cap, and Byron Prolu, right?
Yeah.
Was that their fourth? So I mean, all of them have been in the league.
I would say an interesting name on this list that maybe people don't know is good to see Mythics get a win. He's been kind of floating around Europe for a couple of years. He's been on some decent EU squads, but I think he's going to get a lot of exposure this year in the elite, and people are going to understand like he's actually like pretty good. So, would nice to see another Scotch player in the league if someone wants to take a chance on him. But we'll keep covering Challengers as it pops up. There's another cup I think coming up next weekend, and the weekend after that, and then they have the elite qualifier in the beginning of January. So we will see what's going on with that.
Did you watch?
Kyler will probably run Worlds and Challengers. That kid is extremely talented.
I'm not going to be a doomer about Kyler, but what do you expect?
Well, hold on. Well, part of it is also the way this game plays, though. Like you spawn up so fast to where you died. Like
I said this at the beginning of the season in the off season. I was like, Kyler, when he was on that Rumor G2 roster before they picked him with the other two, I was like, yeah, I would not be shocked if Kyler was one of the best players in this game. It's just pure movement. Like his play style, the way that he thrives, especially in challengers and in eights where he is getting all this insane gas. Listen, I'm not going to deny Kyler's talent, but he's been around for fucking 10 years, bro. He's always been the same player. Like when you throw him into a completely sporadic system like challengers who has no idea how to track a name or play in a way that's going to shut Kyler down, of course he's going to shit on everybody. He's more talented than everyone down there.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Kyler's issues come when he has to operate in a structured team environment. That's when that's where his flaw is. But talent wise, he's gonna run
everybody in there by far.
Yeah, dude, he was gross when he was Shotzi subdue on Cold War too. If I recall correctly, he was frying. So
yeah, his moments for sure.
Well, cool. Let's move on. I want to get to some team previews, but first I want to take a look at some odds that are out there on the internet, and this one in particular on Bet365 for a couple of props that are starting to be offered. I'm not going to go through all these, but there's a couple I want to talk about. So Champs odds are already up on their site. I'm showing them an American version because that's what I get here. And as you can see, OpTic, FaZe, Thieves, you're going to see this is a running thing. The top three with OpTic having the highest or the lowest odds, sorry, and then highest odds, lowest odds. I forget which way you're supposed to phrase it. Anyway, they're plus 175. ATL, FaZe, and Thieves plus 225, and then Toronto, Cloud9, LAG, Carolina, Vancouver, Minnesota. Any surprises? You guys, I'm a little surprised that maybe people have LAG over Vancouver, Minnesota, but you think the bookmakers are just kind of using past experience
they're throwing pins at darts on the board once you hit past the top three.
Yes, with big jump to Toronto plus 1,400.
Yeah.
LAG is they just see people who have one chance before, so it's just like, oh.
They also have to reach the final odds, so minus odds for everybody. And OpTic Texas favored, but Atlanta FaZe and Thieves at minus 110. Toronto at plus 650. Cloud9 at plus 750. LAG and Cloud9 have the same odds. I don't know how I feel about that, but I mean, you're just throwing money away anyway, in my personal opinion. And then a regular season winner, FaZe is actually the highest on the odds at plus 125.
Is that just like number one in the standings?
Yeah, number one in the regular season standings.
Yeah, FaZe has been number one for what, every year?
Good track record.
They've had a good track record
every
here,
season.
so yeah, those are these odds. If you go on 365, they actually already have like money lines up for the first set of matches, but we'll get into that next week once we actually start looking at the match previews. But I want to start talking about some teams that kind of finish the conversation. We had to interrupt a little bit of it last week because we went to top rank play, but so we have a couple extra teams in this episode. We're going to talk about Atlanta, OpTic, and Thieves, top 3 super teams. Vancouver and Carolina Royal Ravens, who I would consider the next set of teams we have to talk about, and then the bottom feeders in Miami, Boston, and Vegas. Would you guys rather start with the good teams and do the bad teams at the end? Do you guys have a preferred order, or you want to just
take me wherever you want to go, Benja?
I want to start with LA Thieves because we were going to get to it in the last episode. And I think they're the team of this group of 9, actually 8 teams that we have to talk about that I think people are probably the most interested in. They formed a super team. They got Dan, paired now with Scrap and Hydra and Envoy. So Envoy's coming home. These after a year in Toronto. You got the Scrap also coming over from Toronto and Paco coming over from New York. And obviously Thieves last season, Cap, when you guys formed that initial squad with Cammy and them, you guys obviously had a real tough beginning of the year, really struggled, made a big roster change, rolled the dice, and it really paid off at the end of the year with a good placing of champs and then a grand final appearance. And I thought going the offseason that, there was going to be continuity there. There might be a change or two. Maybe a player comes in or out, but for the most part, they're going to build around Joe, build around Dan. But the opportunity prevented itself by the subliner situation, the Toronto situation, for Thieves to kind of go for the super team, and here we are. I know last year, sort of the issues with the team were, I'm going to start with you, Cap, struggling to put series away. You guys really struggled at hard point at the beginning of the year, and you kind of even out. I think all of that aside now, this team should really dominate off the rip. If there's one weakness you could identify with this team, Cap, what do you think it is?
Weakness, I don't know. Maybe S&D. Dan wasn't the best S&D player. We were cooking him last year. Love him though.
What in particular was S&D game? Just being too much of an island player.
Too much of an island player. Sitting on that invasion water street. Oh man.
I love Karachi when he's in market. Bombs going down at A, and he takes 45 seconds to.
Yeah, it was
masterpiece.
Do you think
Invasion was the big one? We had arguments over Invasion playing that water street, but I don't know. I think the team's well rounded. I do think I think the rest of the team's very good. So I think Dill's great at search. I think Paco's gonna be great at search, and I think, as we kind of talked about last time, subs determine how your team really flows. Those are the guys going in, getting the entries, and then assuming they do their job, which they're both great at, that makes it a lot easier for Scrap and Dan. So I don't really know what their weakness would be. I think they're going to be well-rounded. Maybe just since they are the new team now, the top 3, maybe take some time to kind of gel, but I think they'll be fantastic all year.
Chelly, what do you think about Thieves? You think with our kind of thought process, S&D might be the one game mode that they're weakest? This one should be good.
Yeah, they're going to be absolutely disgusting. And I'm actually most excited to talk about LA Thieves because it's going to be my favorite. I already know for a fact because we've already seen so much data come in on the kickoff showdown, all that stuff. Dylan Envoy, no disrespect, but I'm fading the fuck out of you all season long. No disrespect.
God. Damn.
It's not it's just the fact that you have to play a certain way to let Paco activate, to let all these other guys around you just shine. I saw a skyline where Paco had 45 kills and you had 21. You were 20, 23 and 20 or something like that.
EK. That's EK at 23, right? Or were you watching Codcaster?
Nah, it was not, bro.
Oh my god.
Envoy has to play such a specific way to let. It can be. I don't want to guess either when it's going to be Ghosty's game, when it's going to be Scrap's game. I don't want to have to guess when they're going to pop off. I'd rather just take Dylan less every single time. Because I know for a fact he's just going to be soaking. I don't want to have to, there will be certain maps where probably Dan's soaking a little bit more, but if Envoy's only getting like 50 engagements per game, like I have to just fade until that changes.
Do you think, Chelly, that the books will be wise to that, and that Dill's lines are going to be really low off the lip, low enough that like the sharp side's actually going to be taken over?
I don't think it's going to be low off rip, just due to the fact that the only reason it would be low off rip is the fact that they're going to be blowing teams out.
Yeah,
I think that's the only, but even if they blow other teams out, then Dylan's not going to have time to get 30, 28 kills, 30 kills. But yeah, this is 100% like the team that I'm most excited to even just like get involved with betting. I think they're going to be super consistent. Obviously, it's not a hot take, but they're going to be super consistent, just beating up on the worst teams. And I think Envoy's going to be that guy where he might even have those 7, 10 kill streaks, but he's not going to get anywhere near 30 kills. So sorry, Dill.
My bad. It's just a smear campaign.
Sam, you want to defend your boy Sam or no?
I don't think he's necessarily wrong. I wouldn't put it as harshly as Chelly did, but I think Dill is a great like superstar compliment as a sub player because he's very adaptable. I think Cap can attest to this as well. I think Dill can do anything that you need him to do and do it at a high level. He doesn't really have a niche, so I think him and like Kiz are like two really good examples of that. And I think if you are going to have Paco on your team, then I think having Dill as his sub duo is like one of the best case scenarios. So I don't necessarily disagree with Chelly. I think that Dill is obviously still very talented and has the capability of being the player if someone else is slacking to pick that up. But I think in an ideal world, if his team is playing the way that they need to play to win championships, I do agree that Dill will be a little bit less. But that's not for a lack of talent. That's more so just because he's kind of worried about the dynamic of the team and how the map is flowing.
Yeah, I mean, Dill's going to have to do all. I mean, I would assume Dill's going to do all the dirty work because you don't really want to hold Paco back. You don't want to hold Scrap back.
Him and Dan are going to be the more fundamental players on the team, as they should be for sure. Like I think Dan is going to be more of what he was doing on OpTic as opposed to what he was doing last year for this team.
And I want to be clear.
That's where he's going to be.
Like what Devoted said, bro, just called Dill ass. I don't think that's what Chelly did. When he's saying that he's fading Dill, he's just like when you have, because there are going to be ways this year to bet on
because he's getting shit on.
Highest damage, most kills. Like he's just not going to be the superstar on this team. Like he is a role player. And it's a question of, is it better? When you see the markets, especially for these first couple of series, like, are they going to be sharp and like be really aggressive in pricing Envoy low and bait people into taking the unders? Or are they going to be high and then the unders will play there? Like understanding what your line and what your projection is better. What do you think the edge is on how he's going to play? Like it could be fairly profitable this season. So I think some other markets with them that I'm really interested. I think they're going to blow people out in hard points. So if you love playing hard point spreads, I think this will be a team that you'll love early because I think they're going to absolutely put people to bed on some maps. The Paco Scrap over combos on Prize Picks, those are going to go hard. I will not be surprised. Tell you what do you think? Like every week. So that prop's going to probably be like top 3 when you go to popular tab.
100%. That number's also going to be crazy high, bro. Like it's going to get to a point where you might not even be able to play it because you'll need them to drop like 40 each. Like for
Paco's end of season numbers last year were like high 70s, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, insane. Actually insane.
Because they were a team that played a lot of Vista Rio.
Yeah.
Like they were double dipping that. So yeah, I mean I think there's going to be an overs team. All these next 3 teams we're going to talk about, like there might be one player that situationally is an under player, but most of this are going to be teams where a lot of the exposure for all of these books is all going to be on the overs on most of this.
But you got to be really careful again because, like you said, these guys are going to be like blowing teams out. Like they might just not have time to get that 40 kill or the 35 kills that Paco needs for a hard point. Like it just might not be enough time. So.
And I think to that point, we'll talk about it more next week. Like the 1 through 3s. If you're 1 through 3 better, to your point, like there's going to be a team that is going to 3 out people in control. So if you're banking on people having a long control map against other top teams, yeah, maybe. But if they're playing, no disrespect to the Boston Breach, like that's a candidate for them having a 30-minute series type team. Any other props that y'all or weaknesses that y'all want to discuss with the team? Like maybe like, are they going to deal with adversity well? You think that's going to be an issue with the team this year?
They reverse swept FaZe on land for their first series. If that shows me anything about adversity, that's pretty fucking good.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty impressive And even though that was sort of a preseason tournament to see them do, I think again, and I mentioned this in the last episode, like talking to Scrap, like he saw what happened last year with Toronto. He doesn't want to repeat that where they peaked too early and then they can't figure it out. And the next two teams we're going to talk about like followed up their worst performance of the season with their best performance of the season, and that's the competition that Thieves has to match. So how do they deal with a bad event, a bad couple of weeks, and rebound from that will be really key. Let's take a look at their schedule real quick, and then I'll tell you what the line is right now. We'll do a little bit of exercise. I'll tell you what the line is on Bet365 about their over-under to win Major 1 qualifiers. Yeah, and you guys can tell me if they're going to hit it or not. So Thieves is
got like 5.5, 6.5.
Thieves' schedule right now. They play Cloud9 and FaZe first weekend, then LAG Minnesota to go back in towards the break. And they come back and they play OpTic, Miami, and Boston. So not the easiest split in the world. They have to play 2 of the other top 3 teams, but right now their stage 1 win total is over 5.5, is plus 100.
Yeah.
So the under is minus. Do you think over? I think 5.5 is actually a good number because I could definitely see them going.
I mean, even worst case scenario, they just split with OpTic and FaZe.
Yeah.
I think
there's definitely, I don't know.
I think
they could definitely lose 2 of those.
They could, yeah,
one of the others.
Could. But I think you guarantee win the others for sure.
Well, I think it's they have 2 very hard matches to start. Like Cloud9 is not an easy team to play your first match in. Like understanding the intensity, like getting a feel for that match. And then you got to go and play FaZe first weekend. Like that's a great test. LG and Minnesota should take care of, but you know, OpTic, it's gonna be a tough match. Miami's like the weirdest team of all time. We'll get to them later. And then Boston, they should probably handle last weekend. Chelly, what do you think? 5.5? You think they're over or under on that?
I mean, yeah, there's going to be a couple matches where they probably fall shorter than expectation, but I think 5.5, I'll probably take the over still. I think they get 6.
You said the unders plus money or minus money?
Unders minus money. Over is plus 100.
I had to bet. I'd probably say the over, but I definitely see a world where like they lose at least one of FaZe or OpTic, if not both, and then I don't know, you get Neslo'd in another match. Like, you know, people are already late to scrimmage control. Like a lot of shit can happen in these early matches. Like, I think, like I said, I think the LA Thieves team is going to be unbelievable throughout the season, but like, it's just hard to predict going 6-1. You know, like it's very
hard.
possible they slip up 4-3, 5-2. Of course, very possible.
Yeah, 4-3 is definitely in play. I mean, we saw.
I don't see a world where they go worse than 4-3, but like I said, like bro, we're just looking at every matchup on paper, but in reality, bro, crazy shit happens in matches. Like OpTic had, what was it, stage 4 last year, where they just went like 0-5. Like,
well, look at Toronto last year. Like they lost to Boston before the break last year, and Dylan Envoy, his worst series as a professional. They got 3-0'd. Like anything can happen. I think 5.5 is such an aggressive number. I would not take the over on that. That's probably a bet I stay away from. It's kind of a sucker bet because I look at the schedule and they can. It's not implausible they can go 4-3 and split the matches between FaZe and OpTic, but like get upset a couple of times coming in here. Like they lose that first match because it's what it is, and then they get upset. Like it's something in the world. But
yeah, and there's definitely some one-liners floating around there, so don't let that.
The rest of their schedule is actually not too bad. The major 2 split: Carolina, Vegas, Toronto, Vancouver, Boston, OpTic, Minnesota. That's pretty straightforward. And then Vancouver, Cloud9, Toronto, LAG, Carolina, easy. And then the last split is Miami, FaZe, Vegas, Boston, Cloud9. So I think LA Thieves will be perfectly fine online, and especially those last 2 splits. I think they're a very good candidate to go 4-1 in both those splits, losing to potentially maybe just the other top team in their split. Any final thoughts about LA Thieves? We expect to be thereabouts this year. What you guys think? They're probably good money to win, counting EWC, probably 2 events at least.
Multiple events.
What are there, 6 events total? Counting EWC?
4 majors, champs, EWC.
I'm winning 2.
Yeah, I'd say. I mean, who's probably the best bet?
2, maybe they win an online minor. I don't know how much people are taking the online minor seriously.
Yeah, it doesn't count.
But yeah, 2 events.
What do you know about online minors, Ben?
Bro, pause.
Jesus.
Dude, Chelly is fucking on one today.
Oh,
Yes,
what?
sir.
We do have to come up with a new
Chelly's
name.
fucking- Yeah, nah. The online minors is a wild con.
Yeah, I think the league may have fucked that one up. Anyway,
Yeah.
let's move on. I want to talk. Let me save OpTic first. Let's talk about FaZe. And both these teams, OpTic and FaZe, and I insinuated it when we talked about the last segment, I think we learned a lot about their teams last year. I don't think that either of them had what they would quantify as an A+ season. I would say OpTic probably more happier than FaZe because they won champs. But I think
winning 2 events, including champs, is absolutely an A+ season.
Yeah, like I think if you're let's put a pin in OpTic. Let's talk about FaZe because I think the FaZe conversation is a little more interesting. They had as a squad, right, like their worst champs placing, and they had like a pretty weird like major run. They lost major one, got slammed by Toronto. Okay, Toronto best event, team at that event. Then they followed up a really good event. They kind of like couldn't close out searches in major 3. Major 4 they should have won. They tossed hard to New York, and then they followed that up with probably the worst chance performance we've seen out of those 4 players. And then going into EWC, we're like, maybe this is it. There's the last ride for the team. They pull up to EWC, and I think they only lost like 3 maps of that entire event.
Yeah, they slammed everybody.
And so you got to think like going the offseason, like they found, and I know I've talked to them too, like they found sort of what I think might work for them long term. My question to you, Sam, is like, even if you know that concerning the opposition now, like you think they're still a candidate to win multiple events again this year? Just purely on the experience?
I think as long as that trio is together, I think that there definitely is. But there's just always going to be a caveat to me with this team. And it's just they don't have a way to battle back in series for the most part. I'm not saying they never do because clearly that's not true. But the majority of the series that they played when they're on the back foot or when they're playing a team that's hot, they don't really have a way of slowing things down. And it seems like mistakes and just like poor gameplay tend to cascade in a lot of their series. And I think that's been a trend other than Cold War when they were undeniable. Like that's been a trend for the entire time that they've been together. But I think that when they peak, like EWC or just when they win events in general, it's very scary because I mean, even I fucked up last year. I said that team was better than their Cold War team, the way that they were playing. Like they looked genuinely unbelievable. And like obviously that was crazy quick trigger by me, but I think that like when they're playing well together and when MC is playing the way that he's supposed to and they're firing in search because they were pretty poor last year in S&D, like that team can win 2 events. Like I don't think that you're coming into any new year with any expectation less than multiple event wins with that team.
Yeah, I would say the only caveat is they were statistically one of the better search teams last year by 1%.
Well, I mean, other than like against the top teams, I don't think that they were.
The problem and
they were beating the shitters, obviously,
is like their floor is so high because of their stability, and like you see it, like you look at all the game mode stats, individual stats, like they're near the top. But we judge a team like this by execution on Sundays, and Cap, you would agree like that has been a problem for this team virtually the entire time they've been an organization.
This team, when they picked up draws last year, I thought they were winning at least half the tournaments easily. I think draws is the perfect 4th for that trio. And I think Zach played extremely well last year.
Yeah.
And the fact that they only won the 1 tournament is like, I don't know, just kind of embarrassing, I guess. Well, I don't know what the right word is.
They won 2 and lost 2 other majors. I would say.
If you count EWC.
Yeah, if you don't count EWC.
We gotta start counting that.
I guess you do have to count it, but like
Major 1, they got slammed. Like they weren't even close in that series. You got to give that one to Toronto. But I think Major 4 was the one they tossed the most. Like they should have beaten New York.
Major 4 was the one in LA in the cage.
Yeah.
No, the Toronto event, I think was Major 3.
Yeah.
The OpTic one.
Yeah.
They go into that tournament, they looked unbelievable. I think that's probably when your take came out saying that they're better than Cold War team.
When they won their event going into the next one.
Yeah, they were so good Stage 3, Major 3. The fact that they lost that tournament, I don't know how it was possible. Like in scrims, everything. They were on another level. So I think it's something with like the mindset on that team. Like you said, they don't close out Sundays. I don't know what it is, but they need to figure out because this team's too good to only win. Again, they won EWC, but as far as the CDL tournaments go, they only won 1. And I think that is pathetic. They're too good to only win 1 tournament out of 5. So I don't know what the fix is. I do think Cell needs to play a little faster.
Yeah.
I will say that publicly. He was egregiously slow at times last year.
He wasn't even that fast.
Look at their peaks, though.
He wasn't even that fast at EWC, though.
The way that he was playing, though, you could very obviously tell. Like when MC is like doing the things that he needs to do, I think it was did they win Major 2? Or did they win
Major 2 in Florida.
That event and that whole stage, you could tell the way that MC was playing was drastically different compared to the rest of the stages on the season. And even at EWC, sure, he wasn't like high engagement, but you could just tell the way that he was like facilitating, playing through lanes and like picking up the right shit at the right time, like hitting things out, baiting, trading, whatever. Like it's very obvious when he is on point how good they are compared to when he's like kind of regressing into that role that he gets a lot of criticism for from me especially.
Yeah, and I think that's important because not every series or sub players are going to fry. Like Abizi is obviously when he's on, he's like unkillable. But as you guys know, with the rest of sub players, sometimes you're on, sometimes you're not. When you have that safety blanket AR player like MC is, where he's just fucking hardest kill in the league, if he's licking walls and not trading effectively, I mean, it's a funny statement, but it's true. Like if he's not playing at pace with them and he's kind of playing his life too much and it looks awkward, if he's actually following them up and bailing them out when he needs to, or helping support like a really good team push and just getting the cleanups at the end when they have the plus in the trades, like that's how they play an event like UWC where they only lose 3 maps and 2 of them are in the finals. Go ahead, Cap.
It's not all an MC either, but I'm saying he is a large catalyst in their success for sure.
Yeah, I think it's very noticeable just watching like the midi map, like when he's just moving with the other 3, like it flows smoother. Even if he's not getting the kills, it makes the other 3 jobs so much easier. And I don't know why he does slow down so much sometimes, because when like raw talent, that kid is disgusting. And when you call him the hardest kill in the league, like
top 5.
I think when he's in the mix, like that's where he is the hardest kill, but he just doesn't put himself in those situations all that much. Like he just is kind of a safety blanket. You don't want a safety blanket. That's not a positive thing. Like anyone could be a safety blanket, like if they're last player alive. It should not be, MC's main AR, so he's in the back of the map, like following us up. It's just like sometimes he's got to go first. Sometimes he's got to just get in the mix and let like be bait for draws or be bait for someone else, depending on how the situation's going. And when it does happen, I think that's when they're unbeatable. But he just has these moments where he just slows down. And I don't know why, but if they figure that out, I think they're winning at least 2 tournaments, if not 3 or 4.
I'm just going to call all of these teams to win 2. There's 6. I'm going to have them win 2 each.
Nice safe bet.
I want to respond to what Cap said, but I want to get Chelly in the conversation. Like, what do you think of these issues, Chelly? Do you agree with our takes about MC? Like other stuff? Do you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, in EWC, like I think that was a different MC that we haven't seen for other than Major 2, I guess. I remember so clearly I faded him in like the last series against LAT, and he dropped 45 on sub base. Like it was the most ridiculous game I've ever seen in my whole life, and I was like, what is going on right now? Like they're really about to win this thing. So I think we probably will see like a faster playing MC this year. And if we do, Ben, I really like that bet for FaZe to make the finals of champs. I think it's at even money. I just don't see how. I mean, this team, the core 3 in Cold War were absolutely disgusting. They waltzed to champs, and I just don't see how they're not there again after falling short last year.
They haven't made the finals in 2 years, though.
This is a Treyarch COD, though.
Yeah.
It's the last Treyarch we're just in, bro. He said this is Treyarch COD, man. The last one we had was Cold War.
Before that was Black Ops 4.
I'm going to make a prediction with this team. And again, this is based on the way the game plays right now. I sit there and I watch a lot of 8s at night. And like, this is a game where the way hardpoint spawns in particular work, and specific to that game mode, like you spawn super close to where you just died and where the action is. And so a player like Abizi that was really hurt by the way that last year played for a majority of the year until all the small maps got in, like he doesn't have that problem this year. And I think you're going to see not only Chris have an insane season, but I think this is a year where Abizi may end up being like their best player this year. Because I think his ability to get his own trade and then get another kill and then get another kill is going to be a massive fucking difference maker for this team. I agree with you, Sam, that I think they're going to win 2 events. And I think that not enough credit. I will say this because I've seen how this team kind of acts in person. And I want to touch on something you said, Cap. I think adding Zach was a perfect add to this team. And I think if there's any year where they're going to pay it off with a champs win, it's this one with this game. Because I think this game also fits Zach's play style really well.
I have a question. If EWC doesn't happen, is this team still running it back this year?
No, they would have probably made a roster change.
They would have made a roster change.
That's crazy, dude. That's insane.
It's a tough roster change because it's like if you thought, after champs said like, yeah, you're not dropping Chris, I would say Zach is undroppable because people don't kind of see what happens behind the scenes. Like, I mean, Sam and Cab, but like they love Zach and they love the effort he puts in. And it just comes down to the other 2 players who are almost undroppable players. So what do you do in their
It's just a
situation?
rock and a hard place. You're immediately upgrading anybody.
Yeah, and that's the difficulty.
Wherever they go, you're immediately upgrading somebody.
So yeah, MC to chat's point, like I think MC did feel like he probably was on man out, but also you drop MC, he goes to another team and makes them better. So I don't know. To your point, Sam, I expect this team to win 2 events. I think props with this team, like they are probably in, a team that you're going to want to probably take overs a lot. There's not a lot of under opportunities with this team. I think the only 2 players in the team, if you want to under angles, is like find the series where you think Tyler Beasley's dropping like a 0.98, maybe not hitting his kill totals, but he's just kind of playing like a classic average entry. And then maps where, we saw last year at times with the way they played S&D, sometimes they're winning S&D maps, but draws is kind of putting his life on the line, kind of filling gaps, and he's going, 7 and 10 or whatever. So if you want to play the under opportunities there with Zach. And I will say this is a team that doesn't always play 12 clean minutes of hard points. So if you're someone that likes those hard point spreads, someone that likes to fade and do map 1 bets, this is a team that I don't expect to be super clean to hard point off the rip this year. Based on past history, obviously.
Nice one, Ben.
Let me look on Bet365. Their win total line right now is also 5.5, and I'm gonna pull up the schedule and get you guys' thoughts here real quick. Their schedule this first split is Toronto and Thieves, so that's a pretty difficult first stretch, right? They play Thieves, and then they could definitely lose that match. And then Thieves, obviously. Well, I checked on Bet365. FaZe is favored right now against that Thieves matchup, but I think the money is gonna move that eventually. Then they got Cloud9, Vegas. Those are dubs. Minnesota, Boston dubs. Cloud9 to 5.5 is, I think, probably pretty fair for this team. What do you guys think? Probably 5 to 6 is what they'll get out of here.
I think all 3 of these teams are going to have the same.
Yeah.
There's just no way to separate them if you don't count the case on win right now.
Yeah. OpTic's also 5.5. I just checked too. I think that's a good line.
There's no way to separate them.
I will say FaZe's schedule. Look, bro, let me read you the rest of the schedule. FaZe actually got an insane schedule draw this year. Their major 2 split is Vancouver, OpTic, Miami, Minnesota, Boston, LAG, Cloud9.
Jesus Christ.
No.
I keep massacre them.
Keep it going. Ready? The next 2 splits: Toronto, Carolina, Miami, Vegas, OpTic.
Okay.
Then Vancouver, Thieves, Cloud9, LAG, Vegas.
Holy shit.
I think FaZe amongst all the top
They're about
teams
to run the table.
Got
that FaZe first in the standings might be the fucking play.
Yeah. I was
talking for 5 years.
Yeah.
Even with harder schedules, I mean, they've just been consistent at it. Going back to, has there been a season where they weren't first in the regular season standings?
No, they've been first every season. So
there's a new one.
It's psycho. It speaks to the floor on this team and why they've only been. I was talking to
Liners.
The guy sits the line for 365. They have only been plus money like a handful of times in the history of the CDL.
Yeah, it wasn't like 3 of them this year or something.
Yeah, it's like something insane. But to someone's point in the chat, they were 1-5 in champs. Want to see this team pay off another champs win, or maybe this is the year where there are finally changes. But talking about a team that did not make a change, and similar story of Atlanta FaZe of winning 2 events. Let's talk about OpTic Texas. I think the OpTic Texas story of last season is super cool in the way that they look so horrifically bad during the Major 4 split and going to their home event. Now I was sitting here, we're talking on stream, and I'm like, I just don't know what to expect from these guys at this event. They just gone on an insane S&D loss streak. They'd gotten dead last, and you're like having flashbacks to the year prior where they looked so good online, and then they pulled up to the Toronto Major 4 and had laid an egg, and then just didn't play good at champs. And they parlayed that off with probably their best event this season in front of that crowd in Dallas and winning champs.
Major 3 was definitely their best event for sure. Their champ Sunday was really good, or I guess the peak of the team was Major 3 in my opinion. That Sunday at Major 3 they were better.
Sunday at Major 3 they probably played better. I think their flow on Major 3 was better. The hard thing to compare champs and Major 3 though, Sam, is like you only play one series on the champs on Sunday, and every other one you play probably 2 or 3.
Overall, the tournament was better at champs, but I think their peak as a team was Major 3 on that Sunday.
Well, Major 3 and champs were the events they won. They, had other interesting journeys at the other majors. And they've obviously not made a change as they are looking to be the first team in CDL history to go back-to-back and win champs. Going to start with you, Chelly. Do they get it done? Do they become the first team to do that? Or is this going to be a season where they win 2 events but don't win champs?
I honestly don't see this team winning champs this year. I selfishly don't want them to. Also,
my God, Greenwald got this guy. The fuck?
Yeah, I'm literally about to get torn apart. I mean, yeah, all my friends are Greenwald supporters and stuff like that. But I don't know, dude. I think Bruce is kind of getting. Oh, this is going to come off wrong. I don't know if he's getting complacent with his role on the team or if he's just settling it into.
About to say,
dude, we're going to dicey territory. I like this.
I'm gonna let you finish.
Yeah, let me finish, and then you can come in. He's starting to turn into one of the slower ARs in the league, and I'm worrying that he's kind of. I don't know. I don't want him to lose his old ways. Almost. I think that he played it so perfectly. They obviously won champs last year. But I'm worried that on a 150 HP COD that we could see a little bit of a drop off. That's my biggest concern with this team.
In terms of what?
In terms of engagements, or in terms of like skill?
Not skill. Definitely not skill. In terms of like engagements and his role, like I think that he's getting too far into like he's just going to be soaking, kind of how Skies was last COD, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, you need to play faster! You need to play faster!" Like he's falling. It's like I feel like we might see that with Bruce.
Could I rephrase this, Shelly, so you don't get cooked in chat? And I think the way you answer this will help you.
Let him get cooked. Let him get cooked by a green wall for the first.
Sure. I mean, if you want to experience it.
I deserve to get cooked for sure.
Are you saying like he's going to take a dip in performance because he's playing that way, or do you think it's do you think the championship hangover, the other factors that we have seen like killed teams like this in the past, on top of they weren't the most consistent team last year, like just as a teammate, like that's package is going to lead to reduced performance this season?
I just think he's fully embracing this role of being Hill Kitten. And I think when Skies did that, you saw numbers drop. You saw questions start to get raised. Is this guy just defaulting Hill? And I think we might see that this year with Bruce. That's really what I'm trying to say.
I mean, Cap and Sam, how do you feel?
I don't really have any specific opinions about Bruce, but I actually think OpTic has a very wide range of outcomes this year. But I don't mean like I don't think they're still gonna be like at worst they're gonna be top 3 still. But like I see a world where you come off that champs win, get a little complacent because history tells us champs winners don't repeat and they are never as good as they were the year before. So you get a little complacent, you spend a little part of the early season kind of bitching, online this, online that, we're the champs. Oh, I'd never lose that gunfight on land. How it goes. I've been around the scene forever. It's how it goes. It's almost inevitable. So, they do have now Ken and Shotzi, 2-time winners who hopefully Ken specifically will not let that happen, although he can be guilty of it himself. I'm just saying. But he does have to be the leader to hold them accountable and like not let that win go to their heads and kind of, keep everyone saying like, listen, we won, but that's last year. This is a new year. They are insanely talented, but it's hard when you win champs to come back with the same fire the next year. Yeah. And sometimes you, like I said, you slack off early in the season and then you kind of fall too far behind to catch up. So if they can avoid that complacency, I think, the sky's the limit for this team. Because also, maybe a hot take here, but I don't think they were ever like, I think they were just a really hot and cold team last year. In the 2 events they won, they were just really hot. On like Major 4, they were really cold. I don't think they were ever actually like a truly dominant team like Cold War FaZe or humbly LAT Vanguard.
Well, they had an undefeated stage last year, didn't they?
Major 3 maybe.
That's a Ben question.
I think it was Major 2. They were undefeated.
They had an undefeated stage for sure.
But they, what killed them in Major 2 is just they get to LAN, and at that event they lost to FaZe twice. They beat everybody else. They beat New York twice. They beat Toronto twice.
That's when they worked on their
once online and once
pool.
on LAN, and then they go and then their problem against FaZe last year is they has tough time beating them in S&D, and they couldn't beat them in control. They didn't want to play invasion control, so they played them on high rise control and lost a million times.
And then we watched them play it in every match forever until they played FaZe again and beat them on it.
And they lost them again on high rise control. The next time they played them, like they had this bad like. Again, that was kind of the way last year played out a little bit, and I don't want to say it was just schedule luck, but like there was a lot of matchup situations going on between the top 4 teams amongst themselves and how they beat each other head to head. And OpTic, had their strengths in that New York matchup, but they really struggled against FaZe. And It just kind of is what it is. So I think they were dominant online. They didn't get upset all too often in the beginning of the season. Where they ran into trouble is that really bad Major 4 stage, where after they got back from winning the event, they slammed Miami because, there's a lot of emotion now in that matchup. And then they lost to like Vegas and that terrible Minnesota team and Carolina. And
they just weren't winning the clutches that they were winning in
they
Major
couldn't
2.
win any S&Ds. They started to slump hard in Surge.
That's kind of my point, though. Is that
whatever it was.
they were super hot and cold. We saw it last year. Major win.
No, I'm saying they were hot up until stage 4 cap.
Yes, but then they won a tournament and then went really cold. And now I'm saying they are coming off another tournament win, champs win, and it's a big test early in the season to see if you can put the ego aside and stay level headed.
EWC is going to play a part in that, like the fact that they didn't win that as like a tournament in between. Do you think that matters at all?
I'll be honest. Talking to them, I think they obviously practiced for that event, but
they didn't take it as seriously.
They didn't take it as seriously.
No team did. To be fair, this isn't like a slight at them. I don't think anybody took that tournament as seriously as they could have. Like they were streaming scrims for that shit,
which is fucking embarrassing, by the way.
It is a little embarrassing. Talking to
that
them,
was an insane amount of money.
They also did there were things they did as far as how they traveled there and how they dealt with the jet lag that they would, if they could do it differently, they would when I've talked to them. And that might have played a factor. They just didn't manage the event effectively enough. And then that series against FaZe is where they just lost. Like they won that first map. They got the high of winning that Karachi hard point, especially on the replay. And then they got slam bullied for 3 straight maps and got played out of the tournament. I think to your guys' key point with OpTic, man, and Cap, you've been a part of teams. Sam, you've been a part of teams that's had to deal with this. It is really hard to come back the next year and have that same motivation, that same fire. I think what might help OpTic is that last year they did the journey effectively of hitting bottom at Major 4 and then winning champs and knowing like what you did over the course of those 2 or 3 weeks, like try to repeat that process. But to your point, Cap, past OpTic teams have run into the issue where like if they get a slow start, they have a real difficulty of like, catching up. And with how FaZe and Thieves will probably progress, like you don't want to be that team of the 3 where you're like New York last year. We were like still good. You're probably still going to win an event, but you're not at the top of the pile.
I don't know. Yeah. I'm super high on this OpTic team personally. I'm high on all 3 of them because they're very clearly the top 3. But I think that like they're going to be disgusting again. To be honest,
I just think like I started this all off by saying there's a wide range of outcomes, in my opinion. I think they could be better than last year.
I think so too.
Like I think that their like that was kind of my point. Is like I don't think they ever became dominant last year. Like they weren't like the favorite on the champs. They were coming off a terrible Major 4. And then they obviously pulled it out. Props to them. You have to show up and play. And they did that and they played unbelievable. But like they have a path to become better and more consistent than last year.
Agreed.
But the flip side is you come in a new year, very complacent, egos through the roof, and it could go very poorly. So I think they're interesting this year. Like I just think you could see a lot of different outcomes from this team, especially to start the season.
You're saying
I'm curious how they match up personally.
Yeah,
because we've seen FaZe and OpTic kind of flip flop back and forth in terms of beating the shit out of each other for seasons. So I'm curious what side of the coin that lands on this year, because it has been like very one-sided traditionally throughout the CDL. And the other thing is where LAT pairs into this, because usually at the top you'll have like last year, like Toronto couldn't beat New York, FaZe beat OpTic every time they played. Like there's just like a matchup thing. So now there's only 3 teams that are going to be battling for championships, barring a catastrophe. I think that I'm anxious to see how those pan out, because those are the most important. Like I don't think talent wise that OpTic's ever going to be worried about losing to like Boston, barring some like online bullshit, right? But if there is a world in which that coin lands on the side of FaZe or LAT and OpTic just pound for pound matchup, whatever it may be, map pool problems, whatever. Like if they're just struggling in those matchups the same way that they struggled at the beginning of last year against FaZe, like that's where it really comes down to it. It's not the other fucking 8 teams in the league. It's just those matchups. So again, if there's a world in which they are struggling map pool wise or for whatever reason, like that's what's going to hold them back.
I agree. I think first off, Cap, to your point, like you think they had the highest floor to ceiling disparity of the top 3 teams, correct?
Yes.
That's what you're saying. I agree with that take. I think that's an accurate take.
I don't disagree with that either.
We go game mode by game mode. Like this OpTic team should be Them and Thieves probably better at hardpoint than FaZe. S&D is the question mark with OpTic because we've seen them be dominant in S&D. We've also seen them lose 11 in a row. So don't know what range of outcomes we'll get there.
Blame 6-star. Blame 6-star.
Yeah. And their control was pretty good last year.
Their control was good last year. It wasn't better than FaZe.
But when they played FaZe, that was
it wasn't
the
FaZe
difference.
Was the best team last year.
They beat FaZe in one of 7 controls they played last year.
Yeah.
So, the matchup thing is really interesting. And yeah, I think OpTic will be a factor, but we'll see pretty early how locked in this team is. If they're bitching and moaning and they get upset a couple of times early in the season and they let it kind of seep in and the team is not going back to back, if they're fighting through that and being a factor at the first event, I think they have a good chance to go back to back if they lock in the way they need to lock in. But Champs is in Toronto this year. No home crowd cheese for OpTic to carry them. Sorry.
Oh, they're fucked.
Sorry, OpTic fans.
Impossible for them to win without the home crowd, actually.
Their opening schedule, they have Boston and C9 off the rip, so looks like a 2-0 start.
Dude, C9 is just all over the place, dude.
C9 that first weekend, man. You never know online the first weekend. And we saw OpTic last year, by the way, lose a bunch of heartbreaker series on like Terminal S&D Game 5, beginning of the season.
The New York one, I remember.
Yeah. Vancouver and LEG, they'll follow up. The Vancouver one could be interesting. That's another potential bogey series. Gorilla Mates. You know what? Weirdly enough, there's actually outside the Boston matches, these are probably the 3 of the harder teams to play. Yeah.
Yeah, they got a good schedule.
Then coming back, they got Vegas, Thieves, and then Toronto. So this stage for OpTic,
they got a really good schedule. They probably have the hardest strength of schedule, no?
They have a hard schedule, which if you're a member of the OpTic team, I would take this schedule. Having a hard schedule off the rip ensures that we're locked in, we're engaged. We can't take this first stage complacent. We can't say, oh, it's a marathon this year, blah, blah, blah. Like, we got to be in our P's and Q's early, or we're going to get upset 3 times here, and we're going to be fighting to get winner's bracket at Major 1. It opens up after that. The next stage is FaZe, Minnesota, Carolina, Miami, who those dumpster, Toronto, Thieves, LEG. So you play top of the 2 top 3 teams, but they should be able to
that hard schedule can be a blessing and a curse, though, because you could do what you said and start out well, or you could put yourself in a hole early, which happens all too frequently.
But coming in,
a bad Major 1 is tough.
The last 2 stages, Minnesota, Cloud9, Miami, Vegas, FaZe, that's pretty easy. And then
you got to get the freebies back somewhere with that Major 1 for sure.
Vancouver, Boston, Carolina, LEG, Toronto last stage is a fucking 5-0 if I've ever seen one. So, the end of the season should be fine for OpTic, but they got to be on their P's and Q's early. So, they're 5.5. I would actually take the under on this. Looking at this schedule,
I wouldn't be surprised if they go under on 5.5 with this schedule.
I don't know. Right now, it's favored for them to win. Over 5.5 on Bet365 is -138.
They have the hardest schedule.
Plus
by far,
100 under
3.
5.5 is actually a good bet, I think.
So I would not be shocked if they struggle.
Yeah. What do you think, Chelly?
It's just objectively harder than the other 2.
I mean, that line's probably priced there because so many people are hammering the over because if they see OpTic and they want to bet on over 5.5 wins, it's kind of like the Yankees money line. Like you're just going to load up Yankees because it's the Yankees, man.
Yankees money line cheese. Dallas Cowboys money line cheese.
Exactly.
Hey. Watch yourself.
Sorry. I'm sorry. It's been a rough season for y'all.
Run your pockets on Thanksgiving.
That's fine. Great. Give me the first overall pick. I'll take it, bro. If you want to stack another win and get yourself out of the race, I don't give a fuck.
Out of the race. I'm in the Ashton
Chad,
Genty
stop
race.
asking for Chelly to finish his Bruce take. Listen, I don't agree. I don't think we agree with.
Set him up, man.
That was the worst take of all time, by the way, but it's okay.
But Chelly
I was letting you rock.
Listen,
no,
you get one
freebie
early in the season on the show, and I'll give you a freebie on that.
Why is Brandon such a because
Brandon's still going to shoot straight.
It's so crazy, man.
The one criticism in his history as a teammate has been not being engaged in the right championship mindset to be a part of a contending team, like not showing up to practice on time.
He wasn't a winner, bro. That's what his critique was. And then he switched to being a winner, and then everyone was like, fuck, I missed the old Brandon when he shot straighter, didn't get 90 seconds per map. What the fuck?
But he's doing the shit he needs to do. I mean, listen, I had that big breakdown with him on stream 2 years ago about it. You know what I'm saying? Like when he got dropped by Rambo, like that whole situation, like that was a big self-reflection period for him. Now, the thing to your guys' point, to Chelly's point, is like, you just can't be complacent after champs and just assume that the vibes and the chemistry is going to come back to you if you have a slow start, because Thieves and FaZe are going to be good. Some of these other mid-pack teams like a Cloud9 or Toronto are going to be there. And test case for New York last year, they had a fucking insane season in Modern Warfare 2 last year. They were literally just mid all year, except for the Major 4, which they just miraculously won. And and they got the champs, but they were out in champs grand final in 45 minutes. Like, I would say that was a D+ season, C+ season for New York. And you don't want that to be that if you're an OpTic fan.
Yep. Who's next?
All right, so that's the top 3 teams. Let's move on. Who do we want to talk about next?
Who's left?
We got bottom feeders. I'm going to say those for the... What do I want to talk about first between these teams? Let's talk about the team that I think is going to be a really interesting team to bet and watch during this first split, because I really just don't know when it comes to matches how they're going to play as a Vancouver Surge. If you want to be refreshed on how they played last year with a slightly different roster,
Money Eights.
you know, they had a weird journey last year. Like, they were pretty solid in Major 1 because they just kind of farmed people on a couple like really good key S&D maps.
Terminal.
They were just a tough out. They were
good at
terminal merchants.
everything.
Then they completely bottomed during the Major 2 cycle. This is after Ender got benched for who knows what reason. And they just were running around like hellish chickens for an entire stage. They were the freest one that stage. Then they made the big change. They bring in 04, which to this day, I don't know why other people weren't trying to pick them up.
They were.
They didn't pull the trigger on it. And, you know, they looked like a transformed team, and I think they hit their best version of their team probably somewhere around Major 4. But they kind of hit this weird wall of like, they were not an easy out, but anytime they faced any kind of series against a top team, they just instantly crumbled and got 3-0, 3-1.
They had no system.
They had no system.
They
got talent diffed.
Yep.
And at LAN, they were just never able to pay that off and got top 8 that lasted champs. And so going into this season, they've made significant changes. Kyler, who we talked about at the beginning of the show, he's out. Brezzy back in EU. And they brought over Byron Nasty from LA Thieves. They brought in Charlie Hicksey from EU Challengers. So they've added a little more structure to Abuza in 04. But I want to start with you, Cap. Do you think that in removing Kyler in particular and adding Byron and Charlie, and I know you coached Byron last year, do you think they've lost a little bit of slang and they may have to deal with a bit of a talent diff issue sometimes in series this year?
Yeah, that is my fear. I think Byron's very good. He's not like one of like the most elite players, but he's going to do his job. He's going to do what he has to do.
He's got a good.
He's going to put up decent numbers. What'd you say?
He's got a good arrow. I liked watching him play last year.
Yeah, he's that's what I'm saying. He makes good decisions. He's not going to drop like a 1.2 on the season, but he might give you like a solid 1.05. Like, he's very consistent in that regard. I think just the talent drop off from Huke to Hicksey, I think the decision making will be better, but I don't know if that makes up for the talent difference, because their play style last year was constant pressure. This is going to be a whole different environment now with more structure, but still need talent. And I don't know. I just don't know if Hicksey's going to be the guy to compete with the other elite SMG duos in the league.
Sam or Chelly, which one of you guys wants to go next?
Ben's going.
Ben, Sam or Chelly, which one of you guys wants to go next?
There you go, bro.
Oh, I had my mic muted by accident.
All good, man. You got it.
People have been saying don't sleep on Hicksey this season. I'm gonna have to pay to see it personally, but I mean, I think
Shocker, Chelly. We're fading everybody.
Fuck
that guy. Dashy, fuck that guy too.
Chelly's just faded all like.
No, these are smart. The Dashy went to the L fade, but these other ones have been. I agree with this take.
Come back,
all these guys.
Come back to like the fifth, sixth episode of Scrap Time. I promise
you're gonna look good.
Hey, no, bro, you're right. You're right. If you're right, you're right. But for now,
I'll take the heat. I knew I was going to get heat for that. But nah, dude, I think this team, again, this isn't the W key team this year that they were last year. I think it does kind of revolve around the new guys, though. If you kind of know what you're going to get from 04, you know what you're going to get from Abuza. These guys are, they stayed with the team for a reason. They were super consistent last season. Cap, you spoke a little bit on Byron. Like, he's, when he's on, and he's pretty consistent as well. I think Hicksey's this X factor, kind of similar to C9's X factor and like Mackenzie Meltz. Like, these subs need to be guys who are consistently putting up 30 plus kills and respawns. And I mean, 04 is going to carry his weight. It's just a matter of if Hicksy can keep up, I think is the biggest question mark. And I like this team, though. I do.
Sam, what do you think?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place with Seattle. I agree in the play style thing. I just think that they were trying to play bully ball against teams that really didn't have a lot of structure last year. And then when they matched up against the top end of the league, they just got farmed. And I think that I agree with Cap. I think this year they'll be more structured, but less talented. So I'm curious. I think my number one takeaway from the team is how 04 develops in his second year, because he really only had a half a season last year, and he was known for S&D, and he was kind of learning respawn on the fly at a super high level. So I am anxious to see how he develops more as a player, because his ceiling was crazy. He came in immediately dominating in search. His respawn was a little lackluster, but to be expected. And same with Abuza. I mean, he was running a sub fucking, I mean, I'm not bringing that up again, but once he started playing how he was playing in challengers and kind of given the freedom, he was arguably rookie of the year. So I'm high on those two, but I think that having Byron and Hicksy on the same team doesn't bode well talent-wise, just pound for pound matchups. I do like both of them. I think that they're both good fundamental Call of Duty players. Like, being an LAT fan last year, I watched all of their games, and I really like the way that Byron played. Like, he really rarely made mistakes, and he's just doing what Cap said. He'll give you like a 105, and he'll be in the right spot, get in the right trade at the right time. But I think his EWC performance last year was a little bit of an outlier, because he was LAT's probably their best player at that event. He was unbelievable, but I don't think that that's a standard that he can be held to. So I think the 1.05 is to be expected. And then Charlie, I just don't think, and it's no knock to him, I just don't think that he's going to stack up against the sub duos the way that he needs to, personally. He's really good, and he's going to be in the right spot. He might get turned on, but he'll be in the right spot.
Well, so I think the calculus
is he really good if you think he's going to get turned on?
I think he's talented, but I don't think that he is I don't think that this sub duo is going to match up in a game where that's the most important thing. I just don't see it.
Again, I think the tough thing is the way this game plays off the rip. It's like, it is a couple of these maps, just constant like pressure, and that's why like the top teams, when you look at their sub duos in Toronto, for example, why I think they're gonna really excel this game. I will say for this squad, I see the thought process of the roster building. You know where you have with Abuza, you put him in the right role now, and he's excelled at the back end of the year. 04 barely played any respawn before becoming a professional. Like, he was a pure S&D kid. And his search is excellent, but the respawn has been coming along. I've heard he's been playing pretty solid in scrims. Like, if he takes the next step in respawn, he's going to be a very good piece on this team. And I think there's a calculus of, look, like, maybe the nasty Charlie thing doesn't work out, and one of them stands out, and we just picked up whoever the next crack kid is in challengers.
I would not be shocked if this is the first team to make a change, by the way.
Yeah, and then they just parlay whoever sticks in there, and then they go from there, and they take the next step. Like, they're making a calculated risk. Then one of those guys will pan up, they'll make the roster change, and they'll get better.
Like, I think that they would be the first one, because they did it last year and it led to success relative to what was possible last year. I think that dipping into challengers, I mean, dude, it's an insane take, but I genuinely think Kyler could just be here again.
Bro, that's what I've been thinking.
I would not be. I'm so serious. I would not be shocked if Kyler was on this team again.
Kyler Illy?
Bro, just fucking bring the team back.
Honestly, bro.
I wouldn't be shocked.
The problem is that they team with Kyler, and I just think that they're not.
They probably won't run it back. I'm not saying.
They're running back with Kyler without, and we know there's probably not going to be challengers land. Like,
if Kyler's a 1-5 for the whole first stage, and Seattle's
if he's a 1-5,
I don't know, man.
Well, there's not going to be an elite during the first. From what I know, I don't think there's going to be an elite in the first stage. So you're just going to base it up off of fucking.
Listen, Kyler's PR is crazy, bro.
I mean, the whole listen, like, I watch a lot of challenger scrims. Like, that Kyler team is disgusting right now in challengers. But again, because the meta is sort of face smashy and just sort of flooding and trading, at least in challengers.
I just wouldn't be shocked if they dipped back into challengers the way they did last year, because they found success afterwards.
I mean, I think they're gonna do it anyway. I just don't see this nasty Charlie thing sticking all season, and I think they're gonna get eighth and up dead last enough times that they'll make a change, and they'll be there or thereabouts. Do I think they're gonna be better than like Toronto or C9? I don't know, because I can see where this team kind of finishes is where they finished last year, which was like they had a win condition, but once you got rid of their best map, last year was Vista Hardpoint, like suddenly they got talent diffed over the course of 4 maps, and the best they grabbed the one of the 3 respawns, and they just lost. Maybe the same thing could happen to them. I don't know, but they're going to be really interesting. I just don't know how they're going to play. I will say this: I think the 04 overs maybe priced pretty low this year relative to how good I think he's going to play in the beginning of the year. So a lot of opportunity there. And to what you were saying, Chelly, I think Charlie Hicksy fade and Byron Nasty fades at times on the lesses might be the play this split. You can make an insane. I feel like this year you can make an insane full fades. Yeah, but you can't take over on everybody either.
You can just fade all the people who are going to have the lowest lines. Is what I was going to say.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You got to find the balance of like we don't know how they're going to price these players yet. Yeah. Like I
have a feeling 4 and a boozes will be higher than that.
100%.
But here's the thing: is it's what's difficult for these books because you can try and price so that you offer a fair market, but if you price it too high, then you get hella exposure on people that's taking less. So it's something that they need to feel out based on, I assume, how they price in their algo based on how people like actually take them more or less. So it's tough. COD is really difficult of a market, I assume, for these books because it changes every year. You don't know the number of interactions. You don't know how people are going to play off the rip, and so they can get like exposed pretty bad the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, which is what I'm saying is we were blessed this year as bettors to get so many kickoff tournaments because
gives you an idea.
Yeah, exactly. They're not ready.
Now you got some good data. So we'll get more into data next week, chat. We're gonna give you locks. We're gonna really get into it next week, but I want to take a look really quick at their schedule and then we'll move on. So this is what Vancouver's schedule is looking like. And they've got some tough splits. The second and fourth split in particular are pretty tough for this team. They start off with Toronto versus Miami, and that's really brutal online matchups for them in Vancouver. So,
oh God, I forgot they're in Vancouver actually.
Yes, they are
playing on a Colorado server. Fun times.
Yes, they are.
They're going to be on Colorado servers all year.
That ping tool is about to be fired.
Is that what they played last year? What server they usually is? Colorado, right?
I would assume Colorado. Isn't there like an Idaho
server? There's Salt Lake.
There's one over there somewhere.
There's an Iowa, but
yeah.
I don't know.
After
that ping tool is gonna be fucking getting.
That's just gonna be spinning.
The ping tool is always spinning with these guys. They got OpTic, Texas, and Boston, so I think there's an opportunity for them to go 2-2 off the rip. And they got Vegas, Carolina, and Minnesota. So I actually think this split is not too bad for Vancouver, and they should take advantage of what is a weaker schedule compared to some of the other mid-pack teams. But it doesn't get any easier after that. Listen to this split. Atlanta FaZe, Cloud9, Gorilla Mates, LA Thieves, Miami, Toronto, Minnesota Major 2.
Like, oh my God, they might get that might be their roster change.
And then the honeymoon stage is Vegas, Thieves, LAG, Carolina, New York. And then
not as bad.
The last stage, so if they're fighting for champs, listen to this stage. Atlanta FaZe, OpTic, Texas, Boston Breach, Toronto Ultra, Minnesota Rocker. They have a couple of stages.
They got a tough one, dude. Holy shit.
The thing at Toronto in a couple of these splits is like potentially a top 4 team to me, and same with like LAG and Cloud9. So like a couple of these stages, the way that they got the draw is like they might play 3 of the top 4 teams from the last major in a split. Like
I think have to come out hot. That major one is going to be so important.
I think major one and the major one minor for me is super important for this team.
Gonna be big.
I'll tell you the line right now for them on the books is over 3.5. In that first stage.
It's a good line.
Ooh, 3.5.
It's a great line.
I see them going 1-1 off the rip, 1-1, and then they should get one more. I think can they get 4? Ooh, it's like it's doable. It's doable.
God, betting on online COD. Holy shit.
Okay, so if you're taking 3.5, they got to win 4 of these between Toronto, Miami, OpTic, Boston, Vegas, Carolina, Minnesota. It's doable. They have to not get upset. They got to win. They got to win 3 of the 5 against.
Maybe not.
Dude, am I? This is an unrelated topic, but am I in the wrong for just not being confident in C9 at all?
No,
I'm not either.
I just don't. Like, I think that they're good and they're going to be better than like 5 teams, but like I think holding them in these like guaranteed win columns is just like not. I don't think that they're like that right now.
I think my difficulty would see actually Cap, you go first. Sorry.
I was gonna say I think there's another team with a very wide range of outcomes. I could see them. Yeah. I really don't think they'll be better than Toronto, but I could see them competing with Toronto, being like comfortably 5th best. But I could also see them being bottom tier, stage 1, and like looking to making a change very quickly.
They're a hard team for me to read when we're going through these matchups. I'm like, do I think that they're like gonna slam like a Boston or a Seattle? I don't.
They're the new age Seattle surge.
No idea.
They have a ceiling enough that I think if it all clicks, A team could definitely
players, so that makes sense.
They could definitely make a final and do some crazy shit in the final, but they could also just get dead last at the stage. I think that's just C9 is just a new age Seattle Surge. They might be just as mid S&D as that Seattle Surge team was. They've got some of the same players. Like that's why I think there's some trepidation because I don't see with them being consistent. You know what I'm saying? Like I just don't. I don't think.
I'm excited to see it though because I do think that they could be very good. But I just don't like preseason. I just don't know where to put them. I really.
Same with Vancouver. I don't know. It's tricky. The mid pack is interesting. I think these teams are competitive. I think they get some upsets, but I just don't know how some of them are going to stack up. Let's talk about another team that is there or thereabouts in the middle pack of things, and they've been very much in the mix in the GA conversation. Shout out to TJ Halley and Slasher, and that is the Carolina Royal Ravens. The last couple of years have been real tough for the Royal Ravens organization. They've had drama-filled rosters. They pivot away from London. They haven't made champs in a while. And last year, they got off to a really slow start, kind of battled back in the middle with some roster changes. Gwyn was kind of a revelation. Getting Real was a revelation. But just like Clay's when he was on Vegas the year prior, like when they had opportunities during the major 3, major 4 splits to really like take control of their destiny to qualify for champs, they just let it slide through their fingies. And so
did you just say that?
Yeah, fingies. You don't like the
fingies, bro.
I've been hanging out with Tom Gravity too much.
Bro,
slid through their paws.
That's a Tom Grav thing.
That is a Tom Grav
but yeah, a really disappointing season for Carolina because I think they should have qualified for champs last year. I don't think they would have done anything at champs. I think they probably would have gone last, but they should have at least been there. Instead, they went to Cabo, and they brought Ben Beans in for EWC, and that didn't really result in them having a performance at that event either. They had made a number of massive changes this season. Clayster fellow Ben Beans all out. Gwyn sticking on the roster. And so their roster this season is Reese, Vivid, Austin Litico, Gwyn, and TJ Halley. So I want to start with you, Sam. I think on paper, we all probably agree their S&D is very good. How do you think they're going to play in Respawn in this game? Do you think they're going to be serviceable, or do you think it's similar to last year?
I am actually very high on this team, personally. I think they will be better than expected. Reasoning for that is one, I really liked Tej last year. I thought he was probably the best version of himself he's been in CDL history, to be honest with you, barring like MW19. Tej was very good last year. Even if his stats don't reflect that, I think what he was doing was great. He was definitely the most underrated player, at least in my opinion, last year, him and Nero. 2, Gwyn, unbelievable. I'm kind of shocked he's still in Carolina, but Gwyn was unbelievable, rookie of the year, insane talent. Pairing him with Austin, I think is super important. And then Reese is the X factor for me because he's running an AR for this team, which is something that he's never done before, at least to my knowledge. I think he might have done it early Challengers days before he made his way to the CDL. But I like all of these pieces. And in Respawn specifically, I think it's going to rely pretty heavily on how Austin wants to facilitate things because he's obviously going to be the one that is leading the troops. They'll be gross in search, to your point. I don't think there's any worry there. But their Respawn is going to be, I think, better than expected. I like this team a lot. I think the construction was very good.
Chelly, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you got the vet presence, which I think we're lacking a lot in this so far. Some of the composition of these newer teams, these roster moves. So that's, kudos to Ravens for that. Again, I am high on Tej. I know Sam touched on a little bit, but last season, I mean, he's kind of the glue guy. He's super consistent. Last COD, I don't expect anything different. And again, Vivid, he's been passed around like a blunt at a Snoop Dogg party. Like he's been everywhere. So again, like depending on what happens with him, this team can be, one of the top 4 in that conversation, or we're just going to be, scrapping to try and get to champs. There's really no in between. I don't see them floating around in the 6-7. I think they're either going to be pushing for that top 4 constantly or just, scrapping to get the champs again like last year. So we'll see.
Cap, do you think Reese is almost in a similar spot that TJ was in a couple of years ago where like there's stuff he's got to work on as a teammate, but he's immensely talented and hopefully teaming with this team, like that kind of rubs off on him and he takes that next step?
I don't know what Reese's deal is because I've thought he is a very talented player since like when he first started, like MW,
So
Cold
much
War.
fucking ball.
Yeah.
What?
King, spit King, you know ball.
Yeah, I thought Reese is super talented. I just don't know. It hasn't clicked for him. Like he had Cold War, he had a stage on Empire, where I thought he was pretty solid, and then I think they got like second with him or third a few times. I don't remember that year.
I got second with him.
Yeah. And then he kind of went through some other teams. Went through, I think he was on Boston for a bit. And last year on Minnesota was
the worst roster change in CDL history.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand why he got dropped last year. So I think he's talented. I think he's definitely the X factor. I think maybe on AR, maybe that's his true call this whole time. But we haven't seen it before, so who knows? But I do like the team construction. I think Vivid and Gwyn do give you like pretty high upside, like a lot of potential talent there that's untapped potential. Austin, Tej, love them both. I think they're kind of the role players in the squad, and I think they're both going to be very good in that role. I don't expect them to drop crazy numbers, but Tej last year, like we've already touched on, that was very good. And Austin, I don't think anything about Austin jumped off the page last year. Like he looked solid for Boston, but I think what happened to that team when he got dropped is very telling that that he was actually playing well, because
he had some pretty good lane performances before.
He did, but like
he got dropped.
I just don't think it was anything crazy where it's like, he's frying. Like I think he was doing his thing, solid performances. I don't think he deserved to be dropped.
They lost the politics battle there. I mean, that's what that came down to in Boston. There's a big internal fight.
For them to go from like a decent competitive team last year to then like one of the worst teams we've seen in a few years, like it's a pretty telling sign. Like Austin was pretty key to their good moments, So I like this team. I think they'll probably be. I think they'll probably be good for a chance spot, but I don't know. This whole range of like 5 to 12 is very, very up in the air for me.
So I would put them at the high end. I'm like this is a team I just have like one of just a gut feeling about. Like I think that they will be good.
I don't think they'll like I don't think there's a world where they end up like bottom tier. I think if anything, maybe they're 9th fighting for that chance spot, but like I think they'll be competitive against almost anyone. Especially because like we talked about, they should be really good at S&D.
So here is what I think the positive and negatives of this team are. I think on paper it's a very good search team. Just players that just know how to play the game mode, play together, like execute, kind of base concepts, set pieces.
Ben's about to bring up his favorite gimmick. I know he is.
You know where we're going to go with this.
Shot.
He's going to be bad at control.
You know where we're going with this. The Reese thing, let me elaborate on, because I'm curious about this, so I asked around ex-teammates, shit like that. And like everybody agrees with you, Cap. Reese is very talented. But what's got him in trouble on these teams is that he just either has a hard time adapting as a teammate to what's required of the team situation he's in, or he just kind of gets stuck in the way that he wants to play and he's not willing to kind of adapt or self-sacrifice to what's required of him in the system of the team. And that's why he's ended up being like the odd man out in a couple of these situations, not because he's being a bad teammate, but because it's kind of 3v1 on tactics. And, when that happens, if you're the odd man out and you don't want to change the way you want to play, they're going to bring someone in will play the way that the team wants to play in order to have a good system. So maybe as a team where it clicks.
You have evidence of him? Because you're making Reese sound like he's very hard-headed and like
I've talked to
disagreeable.
I've talked to at least 3 or 4 different ex-teammates of him that have all kind of said the same thing. Like they all think that he's talented. They all think, by the way, that putting him on AR is actually a smart move. Because the way his play,
slow him down.
The way his play style is right now, like it's not like he was running out of the sub and he's getting killed. Like he's still getting his. But putting him in AR, he's gonna fill spots in a timely fashion and get kills and like actually be a lot more like impactful on the map that way. Instead of the way he was playing as a sub, where he's sort of the big knock on him in like Modern Warfare 2, for example, is like he was a big corner camper, big baiter with a sub in Modern Warfare 2, and like really not being proactive in taking map control of this team and just kind of playing for stats. That was a lot of ex-teammates kind of had issues with that.
I'm curious who your sources are, because I've never really had that opinion of Reese, but I mean, I also didn't watch him all the time, so
I'm not gonna reveal who's told me that, but I feel pretty confident.
Yeah, no, I don't
enough people have told me that like that's the MO. That being said, like in this team environment that Reese is in, with players like TJ and Austin, that like if you want to go to bat for how you believe, like they're not going to take shit personal in that way. Like those are old school players that understand that if you guys have issues on team mechanics and team tactics, If you want to argue it out, let's fucking argue it out. As long as by the end of it, we all agree we want to do X, then fine. Whatever. It was what it is. That's just part of the process.
Austin will always hear you out. He'll call you a moron if you're wrong, but he'll hear you out.
He'll hear you out. So I think if Reese can adapt that, like to your point, like I think they're going to be pretty good at hard point. I think pretty good search. The only thing is and you know, Sam, you called the gimmick.
Rip it.
I just look at this team comp and I'm like, TJ's control game, not that great. It's probably the weakest game mode for him. Austin, that's his weakest game mode. You know, Gwyn at times last year really struggled in control. Reese's teams were kind of iffy last year in control. I don't know. We'll see. We only got 2 control maps right now. It's a bit of a funky game mode as a swing game mode. But if I had to pick one area, this team might struggle to put teams away if they go up 2-0 like last year. It might be this game mode, and then they're going to be really reliant on closing out series in that game 5, which I think they can do. But Cap, as you know, last year with your team, like, you know, you're really dangling that S&D ice if you're going to put the reverse sweep in play if you can't close people out.
I don't know. Control is weird to me. I think if you figure out hard point, you end up being a good control team.
I have no faith in anyone to figure out that game mode. Cap, you and I talked about the whole invasion, like wrapping for B Street control.
Oh.
Like there are like very simple concepts to me, and like Ben, you can attest to this more than anyone last year. Just how hard I was tweaking about just the way the teams approached control, and it seemed so black and white to me. Like they just didn't get it, and I don't know if that's like a fundamental thing or if that's just like I don't know what it is, because I watched people wrap that street for the entire season. I watched them do it in the wrong times. I watched people play high rise control wrong. Crazy. I watch people do like just the game mode itself is so black and white to me. I'm not going to get into the nuances of it, but there's just teams that made the same errors the whole season in that game mode. So I truthfully, if you're bad at control, I don't know if I have faith for the teams to figure it out. I don't know if you're just born with how you fucking got the knowledge to play the game mode or not. I don't know.
What do you think, Cap? Like what separates like Atlanta FaZe?
Oh my God. My chat's bringing up the ASIN thing from EWC.
And OpTic Texas, for example, compared to other teams in control, like what do they do differently that other teams can't execute? It's not just getting kills.
I don't know. I think they're just good hard. Like I truly believe if you're good at hard point, like I don't like that's the harder one to figure out every year. And once you figure out, I feel like control, like you can apply like the same respawn concepts. It's like it's slower game mode, so it's usually here. I don't know. Maybe I'm just biased from like my own point of view of it, but
well, I think that you're intelligent and privileged in the argument that you're making right now, because you don't understand. Like what you and I were watching last year, you don't have the same point of view as like the other teams, because you and I are in agreement of just the monotony of how teams are playing it.
Bro, ignore that fucking guy.
It seems very straightforward.
And just go fucking mid map and kill everybody else.
I think it seemed very straightforward.
I went to war
because it was. Bro, but then these other teams that I watched do it all year, it's like it could have been rocket science to them.
I don't know. You want to know my theory that I developed last year? You and I talked about this.
Absolutely.
I think too many of the bottom teams in control, specifically evasion control, just kind of fucking ran around. And like when they got 2 or 3 kills, that's when they actually locked in and wanted to like execute shit. And the reason that like FaZe was so good on that map is they had a pretty good understanding of how they wanted to 3-1 and 2-2 shit. Like they knew early on in those set pieces, like if someone snuck through street, like how the other 3 guys needed to play to set that one guy up to get on point and go off. Like I just think they knew how to work all 3 lanes of the map instead of just like tunneling into the situation in front of them. And just like actually
if we're going to get into this, like the nitty gritty of it, I think that OpTic was probably the best invasion control team offensively last year, in my opinion. I think that I think LAT early season was doing a lot of the things that like teams picked up on midway through. I think that genuinely no bias, or I actually think that they were ahead. And then OpTic towards like the midway of the season, they redefine the way that map was played with like mid control and the way that kills developed and how like what lanes they were cutting and when and what times to wrap the guy on the street that we keep bringing up, like when he needs to die versus like completely ignoring him to play for kills mid map. Like OpTic kind of transitioned that mid-year period, and genuinely no one just stole what they did, which was mind-blowing to me. And I don't know if that's for a lack of talent and they were trying, or genuine just ignorance, because it seemed like what OpTic was doing was very black and white. Like they would, if you're trapped in the street, you push out, get your kills mid map, last guy wraps the street, makes that guy useless, you stack point. It is very straightforward. It's similar to like a CeeLo control from MW2. You kill the last guy white, you go around the spawn. It was very, very, I keep reiterating myself, it's very simple, but we watched the teams all year just every time. Nobody was doing it other than like 4 or 5 who are good at the map. So when teams are bad at control, I genuinely don't know if it's something that they just don't understand fundamentally as a game mode, or if it's an adaptation thing, or if they're just fucking not born with it. They don't know how to stack the point. I don't know. So if teams are bad at control, bro, I don't know if that's like, it's an important thing, genuinely.
So Turtle,
I gotta watch more. I think I'm too much just looking from, like you said, my own lens, watching my own LAT teams for so many years. I think I got it.
I watch a lot of stupid fucking.
Well, now you're on this side, baby. You're gonna be sitting here with me and Sam losing fucking composure. I watch a lot of brain dead cops. Dude, the amount of times that Sam and I last year were like, bad, please. Man. If you go middle, it's a 4v3 and that guy Bridge is absolutely. That's why I like watching you guys, because I was literally on my fucking knees. I was like, dude, thank God, because the stage 1, like I think after stage 1 is when you guys like started sucking ass at that map. You couldn't win around 5 to like save your lives.
Yeah, we just choked.
Yeah, but like stage 1, it was like, oh my God, they're like genuinely ahead. Like they know how to flow the map well and not get into the spawn trap situation. But again, it's just I don't know. Well, I don't know. We'll see.
I think we'll be talking a lot about control this year with respect to the bets. Chelly, while I pulled the schedule, what are you thinking props with this team? Because I think they're going to get slammed in a couple of hard points. So when I see situationals where I can take the spreads, I think I'm going to do it. But like, are there other more or less things you're thinking about this year?
I mean, at first, I'm probably going to lean a little bit off this team just to see how they do with Vivid at AR. It's hard to just, going from a complete role change it's going to be interesting. If what you guys are saying is true, and I do obviously believe it, but I mean, we might just be fading map 3s for certain players. I mean, the issue with this team is I don't know who's going to be lacking in the kill department. I mean, maybe Slasher just because of his role, but other than that, like, I feel like this
team is hard.
Exactly. Anybody on this team can pop off. And I mean, I've kind of been saying that a good amount with some of these teams, but this is another one of those teams where you can't really pick your spot, because
I think the only thing that I would feel confident in right now with the team is Tej and Search and Gwyn and Respawns. I think it's probably specifically Hardpoint.
Flasher, map 3 unders, baby.
There you go.
Print this money last year. It's gonna print money again.
Wow, here we go.
But I think, dude, Tej was fucking. He was so good last year, and I'll every opportunity I get to gas Tej, I will. Great season for because I don't think that he got his flowers last year the way that he should have. He was genuinely unbelievable last year.
We did gas him a lot on the show. I'm someone that's been very critical of Tej.
I'm making it known.
Yeah, because he's
Sergeant Toast was back, dude.
He's had a bad history against top teams since like the beginning of the CDL, but I thought last year was almost probably his best year in the history of the CDL.
I would love Tej to have a second prime.
I think
love that kid.
Renaissance here for Tej.
Listen, if this sub duo is nasty, Reese is shooting back, and Austin just filling gaps. This is like a TL Surge situation. Like they could just pull to an event and it's just clicking, they're clutching, and like they can find themselves in a final. But there's also the Carolina potential that they just constantly shoot themselves in the foot. They can't close out situationals, and this Carolina team is just kind of fighting for champs all year. I will just go ahead.
Do you guys think if this team starts to kind of fall flat, Reese first to go, like they pull a plug immediately, it's like the kind of Reese experiment is over?
It depends on performances, obviously, but like if he's dropping, like he's always been a sub, and like he drops a 0.9 a lot of the time, despite like looking talented in gunfights. If he's dropping that kind of numbers on an AR, I think he'll have to go. Well, I mean, the whole point with the AR is slow him down. Hopefully, he's putting up better numbers.
Well, let's take a look. Someone said get gunless. Yeah, I don't think we can get Slasher and Pierce on the same fucking team. But let's take a.
It's like World War II. Tej. Oh my God!
We're just running back cries, bro. Well, I fear Dan's
back.
I fear Dan's coaching Minnesota Rocker. But let's take a look at their opening schedule. It's not actually too bad if you're a Carolina fan. Vegas and LAG that first weekend could be a hot 2-0. And then you have FaZe and then Cloud9. So I think 2-2 should be in play for these guys. And then coming back into the end of the stage after the minor tournament, Boston, Vancouver, Miami. Ooh. If you're a Carolina fan, this is a stage where you should get winner's bracket. If you don't, I think that's disappointing. Because it only gets harder after that. The next stages are hardest stage. Thieves, Toronto, Minnesota, OpTic. First 4 matches, Cloud9, Miami, Vegas. Like that's a real tough stage if they bottom out. And the next 2 stages are not, it's a mixed bag. LAG, FaZe, Minnesota, Vancouver, Thieves, like that one's also hard. But if you're going to be a team that's going to battle for top 6, you should beat these other squads. And then coming in, not a bad schedule: Toronto, Boston, OpTic, Minnesota, Miami. So could have been worse, could have been better. I think you take it, but the major one, there's another team that's got to start quick, or that's second stage is going to bite them in the ass. Their current over/under right now is 3.5. I think over.
Cap.
I think that should be an over with these guys. If they can't find 4 wins in here between Vegas, LAG, Cloud9, Boston, Vancouver, Miami.
I think I'd take the over stage 1 here.
Yeah, I think I am too.
That's got to be juiced, right? Like minus 130. What does that happen?
Right now, the lines that were sent to me, minus 120.
It's a good read out of you, Chelly.
That's what I do, man.
Good read out of you.
Predicting the lines, man, it's typical.
Well, let's move on. We got 3 teams left, and I'm going to group 2 of these up together, and then we'll talk about Vegas last at the end, because I don't think we had a lot to say about Vegas. We talked about them a lot. I'm going to group up Miami and Boston because they haven't really made a lot of changes from last year. They were both kind of non-factors last year, and they're both in kind of similar boats of like they didn't really change too much. I know Boston is keeping the roster at EWC, and they actually didn't play that bad that tournament. They got it groups. But Miami, like last year, was just super inconsistent. Do you think either? I'm gonna start with Chelly. Do you think either Miami or Boston will find any kind of consistency this year, or you think it's going to be similar issues to last year's, where they're sort of bottom feeders?
I mean, dude, I wasn't a big fan of the Vickle change. I don't know if they needed to change anything. I think they just needed more time to kind of gel. So it's interesting that they're going to bring him in.
Are you saying like the rumored like Rencore's coming in for Vickle thing that's rumored right now?
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think that's probably, bringing up some red flags in that camp just before season even starts. So I don't know. You guys can tell me. I mean, Sam, when you're bringing in someone new to a team and it's before the season even starts, and there's a lot of question marks going on and probably some internal beef, not beef, but like like stuff going on in the camp, like that's got to affect you as a player going into the season, right? Like surely.
Yeah, it does. If you know that your replacement's sitting on that bench, then it definitely should light a fire under your ass anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And then Boston, I mean, dude, people are so fucking mean to Purge, man. Like, what the fuck? Like, leave the guy alone. Like, he might fry this year. But nah, in all seriousness, this team's probably gonna get shit on. Like,
this team's probably gonna get shit on.
Sam, what do you think?
Miami's interesting. When did they make their journey change last year? Do you remember?
After Major 1,
was it Major? It was Major 1, right? Okay, that's what I thought. I don't know with this Miami team, man. I hate the gimmick. I get it. I understand it. I hate it. I think that having a region lock thing just immediately caps your ceiling. You're never going to win an event if I'm being blunt. Like that team's incapable.
They went three matches on land last year. Went 3-8.
That's what I'm saying. Like I get the gimmick. I don't know the purpose of it, but I mean, Real tried to leave for Toronto in the offseason. Miami said no. That's automatically a tough one for him. He's going to have some feelings about that. I know Rencore is very talented. I've shot against him a handful of times, and I've heard great things about him. So I'm excited to see his debut this year. But I mean, I'm low on Miami. I think I was high on them last year coming into the league again, and they had their moments where they surprised me. They were phenomenal at search at points during the season, but that's just not enough. They were always just outmatched in respawns every time. That was their problem. They could win, the 6 stars and the high rises, but they could just never close out in hardpoint from lack of talent. And then the Boston team, I mean, they had a good EWC, and that's what that's the first point that everybody's going to make about the roster, but they were all 4 dropped, I'm pretty sure, from the CDL that year. And I don't know if that's just like a 2 wrongs make a right situation, but I don't see this team having any sort of success either, personally. And I kind of am disappointed in Boston for not really trying the market either. They immediately re-signed them after CDL or after EWC, or just like said that this was going to be our team based on the success at that tournament, if you want to call it success. So all of the things that I have praised Boston for organizationally, I think that the fact that they didn't even attempt to see what the market looked like in free agency going into Black Ops 6 kind of rubs me the wrong way. But I don't see either one of these teams really making any noise.
What do you think, Cap?
I think the big point here in Miami is, like Sam said, the region locked. I think the region locked idea is just stupid. I don't understand it. Like maybe you kind of like find 2 Spanish players and you pair them with like 2 other players you like think are good, but it's just you're just capping your ceiling. It's just I don't know. Maybe it's like the branding's better, but like it just doesn't make sense from a competitive point of view at all. I do think if I've heard Rancor is very talented. If he is this talented, he's a good AR player. I do think him in for Vickle could make them a better team. Rancor, Lucky, Metals, Real. I do think there's some talent there to compete with top teams, but they're not going to win an event. They're not going to be a consistent threat ever. So I don't know. It's hard to get excited about a team like that who underperformed last year and like it's just all right. We're just going to basically run it back. I don't like that at all from an organizational standpoint. And then Boston, I don't know what to think anymore, Boston, man. I think they've been trying to make Snoopy this franchise player. It's now been a year and a half nearly going back into MW2, right? Like,
yeah.
And he has these moments where he looks talented, but it hasn't been working. I think this is kind of the last chance for him. I think after this is kind of when he just starts to, if he doesn't prove himself here, and this not just himself, but like work with the team, and the team's doing well and he's playing well, he might just end up in like that kind of purgatory where he ends up like in challengers and then bounce back in the league or ends up on just like perpetual bottom tier pro teams, and
so like Afro.
Unfortunately, yeah, I love Afro too.
Yeah.
I had him last year. I want him to be better. I will say about Boston, Cammy always gets better at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Like last year, he started not great for us in LAT, and then by the end of the year, he's pretty good at challengers. He didn't get another chance in the league, so I am happy he's getting another chance. Wake has shown that he can be very good, but like I just think this team's hoping for too many players to just like step up and reach these ceilings that were either a long time ago or like in Snoopy's case, we haven't fully seen. So,
Cap, this is a random side comment. How do you feel about players being added to teams or held to the standard of like their peak? Like when people
standard?
like when you build a team and you're like, but what if Cold War Cammy's back? You know what I mean?
Well, that's kind of what we did last year.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking. Because
so here, okay, so I'll talk. I don't know if I've talked about it publicly. Like last year, we going into that whole offseason, that team building. We weren't necessarily hoping for Cammy to be core Cammy, but the end of MW2, Cammy was like pretty decent on Minnesota. We were like, oh, maybe he's on like an uptrend. Like he, Cold War fell off a bit. Like maybe he's like kind of working his way back up.
Yeah.
Ended up not being the case. Now I think my theory is what I said, where he starts slower in years and ends up better as the year goes on. But it's just kind of like when you have limited options building rosters, I'm a big believer in going for the ceiling of a player. So like rather than just taking these guys who are kind of average, it's like, okay, you need some superstars on the team to compete. So it's like we've at least seen Cammy do that. And like in Afro's case, we saw Afro be very good. Like I think it was start of Cold War and then start of MW2. Afro was looking really good at those games. But it's like, okay, that's a guy who never hit his potential. So again, last year we're like, let's give him the chance. Let's give him a chance.
Yeah, he was in some bad team situations. You know what I'm saying? Put him in an actual good environment.
Yeah, let's put him in a good environment. That was a big thing too. Like he's looked good on these bad teams. Maybe this is his chance to shine. And it doesn't work out for a variety of reasons, but I think it is worth the chance. So like I can see what Boston's going for here with Snoopy's potential ceiling that we've heard about, Wake's former ceiling, Cam's. I just think it's asking for too much, and
a lot of what ifs.
Yeah, too many what ifs. And just like kind of, I don't know. I think I'm losing faith in Snoopy being this superstar franchise player.
I think you guys have not mentioned what I think is the elephant in the room with this Boston situation is that, the org situation was pretty tenuous by the end of the year. I don't know what financial resources they have on this team to make changes or all that. I'll kind of dive into it like we did with LG last year and see like if this is going to be a situation where they're just not able to make changes, and this might just be the team all year. That's why I was surprised that they instantly resigned them after EWC. Maybe that was kind of the directive and what they needed to do if they were going to potentially sell or whatever. But I agree with you. Like, there just isn't a high ceiling with this team. Like, you know, even if Snoopy shows like a 30% improvement, like I still think they're capped at some of the issues the other players have. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's still a team, even if they shoot back, like I am not trusting this team to win a game 5 S&D against a quality opposition. So I don't really know what the goal is for Boston this year. And as far as Miami, I agree with you guys. This whole region lock thing, hopefully it's the last year they run it, because last year, like I could break out stats for you guys. It's irrelevant. Like Miami was just week to week, day to day, the hardest team to predict. Like they were capable of some great upsets last year online, and they would go to events and just be complete non-factor.
Horrific.
Like I just don't. And this is not like a rookie team. Like they had players on this team that had been in the CWL in like Black Ops 4. Like they had been competing for 4 or 5 years at that point. And they just had no grit. And I just think that, yeah, if it seems like maybe Vickel's the one out and they're bringing Rencor and they're bringing some fresh blood, if they can't figure out a way to get like at least to a Sunday with this team this year, be competitive at these tournaments, like I really think they are just doing themselves and their fan base a disservice by putting out these region lock rosters when they can make a very good mixed team of Spanish players with some NA players.
I think that should be the end goal. Like if you want to do this full Spanish thing to like find players, which I completely disagree with, if you're going to send a whole season down the drain just to find a player, like I think that Real is a fucking phenomenal player. That guy had a great first season last year. I think Rancor could have the potential to do that. Metals was also very up and down, but his highs were pretty high last year. Like I think having a mixed roster is achieving what your idea is with the whole region thing, but also gives you so much more competitiveness in the CDL. Like you're never going to win an event point blank period with a full Spanish team. I hate to say it, but it's just true. And I think if you genuinely have the goal of winning events or being competitive on Sundays, you have to spend the money to bring in good talent as opposed to just trying to have the region gimmick. But you can have that with the players that I mentioned previously, but you need to venture out of that. I think Falcons is also in that same boat. I don't know if I want to talk about them, but
well, we'll get to Falcons in a second. We can go through. Do you guys want to go through? I mean, props for both these teams. And Chelly,
I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with either one of these. Chelly, if you do, you're a mastermind, brother.
Chelly, I'm gonna tell you what I think, and then I want to get your thoughts on it. Boston, okay. I think that Snoopy's gonna have at least one pop-off series in the beginning of this year. So just trying to identify potentially that opponent. I think he's gonna have a monster series. But like Wake S&Ds, I'm fading. Cammy major map ones, I'm kind of fading. Like Boston is just not a lot of over opportunity. Miami, I have no fucking idea what to do with this team.
I think Metals could be good.
Maybe Metals lucky overs. They do play kind of gritty S&Ds that go to the wire, so maybe you play the cover there. But like, I don't know what to think about Rencor. Like, what are you thinking? What do you think of those picks?
Dude, honestly, I think based off last year, I think Real is probably who I'm targeting here, just because I think he's going to be high engagement guy, kind of flying around the map. And that game or this game plays super well to play styles like that. We've already seen Shotzi frying guys like that. So I think Real is going to be someone I'm targeting. And it's all up to if Miami can actually keep these hard points and respawns close, which I honestly don't really have much faith in right now, especially with everything going on in that camp. On the Boston side of things, obviously this is, I mean, like Cap, you said it, like this is Snoopy's pretty much final stance, right? Like this is the culmination of an entire dog shit year last year. Coming in this year, this is everything. I think he's going to either, I don't want this team to turn into what it turned into last year. It's like, I need to put up 30 kills if I want to keep my job, but I think it could turn into that again, meaning Snoopy's going to be flying around. I think Purge is going to be headbanging shit and just throwing his life away, unfortunately, just because he has to, because there's so much pressure on Purge to be, you know, keeping up in the slaying department. And then Cammy and Awakening, I mean, is Cammy going to activate Wake? Is Wake going to play slow and lick a wall again like last year? And it's you know, he's probably one of the more inconsistent players on this roster, which is saying something because a lot of these guys were inconsistent last year. So if I had to pick one on each roster, I'd go Real because I think he's going to be, everywhere on this map or on these maps. I think they cater really well to him. The play style does as well. And I think Snoopy, just for the narrative, the fact that this is the last chance he's going to get being, the guy. So we'll see though.
Yeah, I fear Snoop, if he can't figure it out like his ex-teammate Cap, I think he'll just be kind of stuck in that challenger's bind. But I think, again, the question I have of Boston is like, what is the financial flexibility of this team? Is this another LAG situation where like maybe they might pick up a sub and that's the only roster change they can get? Like, are they actually going to be down to pick and drop people up this year? Like, I don't know if y'all know. I literally have no idea.
I have no clue. I will say, I think Wake over is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Just because till last year, he had a pretty good track record of dropping good numbers.
He's so inconsistent, Cap. He's so inconsistent. Bro.
Is that based on last year or years before that also?
Years before that, he was kill whoring. Last year, he was so inconsistent.
I don't care if he's kill whoring from over-unders. He can kill whore all he wants. It might not help his team win all the time, but
as long as he's cashing your bets, you don't give a fuck.
I mean, that's what we're talking about. That's what I think. He's coming off a bad year.
Yeah.
I think maybe they could be interesting start there because, I don't think the team's going to be great, but someone has to get some kind of kills. They're not going to lose 250 to nothing,
Yeah. This is the Bean, Beans last year when he came on to Boston, kicked on, dropped 35 each map, and so
Wake was so frustrating last year because he was genuinely kill whoring for years, and then he got on the team where he was like, all right, now I get to kill whore and be productive, and then he was just not doing that. Like, I really felt that team last year was going to be such a good landing spot for him playstyle wise, and it just did not pan out at all. That was like one of my bigger shocks, I think, from last year.
You couldn't figure out S&D. I mean, he was mid of respawn, but they were all up and down. But they got to so many game fives, and he was just an absolute liability in those game fives. They were putting him in also trash spots. Like he was their fucking mid tank guy on Invasion.
That's not trash spot. That's prime time, baby.
I know, but he couldn't figure out how to get kills in that spot.
That's his fault. That's what
I'm saying.
S&D?
S&D, yeah.
That's prime time.
Yeah, but you got to be able to make that spot work. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to be the guy to be able to get one in that spot.
Hey, that's on him. That's not on the team. Invasion, if you're putting on that mid-tank, you got a gunfight,
dropping donuts
baby.
in that spot. Like, bro,
as an aficionado.
Put him on fucking bridge, bro. Let him watch fucking this.
Put him on bridge.
You can't put bad S&D players on bridge.
MC was on bridge. I don't know.
Yeah, they had. And
Did you do anything bridge?
Yeah, he had that 1v3.
Yeah. I don't remember.
Where he snanked the car. Anyway, let's lock in. Let's talk about the schedules. So for Miami, their over-under is 2.5, which is minus money right now. The over is minus money. And I can kind of see it. Vegas, Vancouver, Boston, Toronto, first 4 matches. There's opportunity there, but it's Miami. They could blow it. Then Cloud9, Thieves, and then Carolina. So I kind of see 3 wins there, but Miami, I don't want to make a prediction. I have no idea. And their second split is really hard. Minnesota,
this
LAG.
is not want to do better.
Yeah. They got to actually do good in this first split because the second split and third split are difficult, and the fourth one's a little bit easier. Minnesota, LAG, FaZe, OpTic, Vancouver, Carolina, Boston. That is a fight for winners bracket 1, and you play 2 top teams. And the next one, you also play 2 top teams, OpTic and FaZe, before they play Vegas, and then you got Toronto and Minnesota. So I think Major 3 is harder than Major 2. Then coming in, they got Thieves, LAG, Vegas, Cloud9, Carolina. So they're another team that's got to get a good start, or that Major 2, Major 3 thing might be really difficult to overcome on Major 4 time, and they're fighting for a champ spot. They need to be in the mix in these online minor fucking tournaments early on. I'm saying over on a 2.5 because they're getting 3. What do you guys think?
I have no confidence.
Where's Chad?
I just refuse to bet it. So
yeah,
with everything going on, then
I'm not touching that.
You can't touch it, Ben. You can't. There's too much going on. There's too many question marks. There's just
staying away from that.
I wish the over was plus money because I would do it, but
staying far away from that.
For Boston, so Boston's line's actually 2.5. It's 2.5, and they are currently plus money in the over 2.5. And this is their schedule: OpTic, Minnesota, and then Miami, Vancouver. Okay, some opportunities. And then after the minor Major 1 tournament, Carolina, FaZe, and then Thieves. So they really the last 3 matches are going to be tough. So I could see 3 in here, but
You play all the top 3, right?
yeah, I play all the top 3 in this stage.
I mean, yeah, I have to go the under there.
They don't play. They don't get a free-ish win in Vegas, so they got to play. Well, I mean, we'll get to that in a second, but that's why I said free-ish. I will say the benefit of that schedule is then the middle of this is not terrible. Stage 2 is still a little bit difficult. Vegas, LAG, Toronto, Cloud9 Thieves, Atlanta FaZe, Miami. So you play FaZe, Thieves, Toronto, Cloud9. Like that's still a little bit tricky. But then your last 2 stages are favorable. Toronto, Minnesota, LAG, Cloud9, Vegas. So you don't even play any of the other top 3 teams during the Major 3 cycle. And then for Major 4, you play OpTic and Thieves, but you have Vancouver, Carolina, and LAG. So I think if you're Boston, like, you know, this opening stage is tough. There's opportunity in the middle. But they're a team like that's got to try and get 20, 10, 30 points out of those online opportunities in the first 2 stages, the single tournaments, and try and win a few series. But I don't know. I think
opening stage is tough. 3 wins first stage is a win for this team.
Let me ask this group: Miami and Boston. Do we have either of them qualifying for champs? I'm gonna say no.
I think the mid pack is highly competitive this year. I'm low on both.
Chelly says no.
Probably not.
Chat, what do you guys think? You guys all probably feel no.
I got a no.
So do we think then, to pivot the conversation, Miami, Boston, and the Vegas Falcons are 3 of the bottom 4?
Yeah,
I would feel comfortable with that.
So
barring some sort of absolute catastrophe, from one of the other mid pack teams, I think that's a safe 3.
So if you have had your head under a rock or just locking back in, maybe you're just picking this podcast up on YouTube and you really followed the offseason, this Vegas situation is a little bit interesting. Not the same roster from last year. All those players are on different teams. Team Falcons from Saudi Arabia has acquired the spot, and they have brought in the 4 guys that they, have been grinding through, the challengers run the last 2 years in a couple of different fashions and brought them over. Khalid, Exnid, King of Body, and Roxas. Those 4 guys played at EWC. And they unfortunately got like a really tough draw in that group. They had a lot of really good S&D squads in that group. It was like them, Thieves. But Cap, you were in that group, right? Was it Thieves?
WC, I have no idea.
I know FC.
I was not there.
Oh, true.
I was moving during it, so I have no clue what was going on.
The group during EWC was them, FaZe, Lore, which is Alex's team that had won champs, and 100 Thieves. So like. That was just, they had 3 top tier S&D squads in that group, and they were able to take Lore to a game 5, but lost it in game 5. Like Falcons gave a good showing, but that's the end of the year. Everybody kind of knows the game. The top thing for Vegas is they haven't really scrimmed any pro teams. They haven't been here. They haven't moved here yet. They've been just playing, I think, in Saudi Arabia.
Euro challengers, man.
Playing Euro challengers on 90 pings. So I'm a little bit concerned about the stage 1 for them. And I'm going to start with you, Sam. Like, do you think this team's going to be able to come over and just absorb what they can the first 2 stages and get something out of this season? Or do you think it's...
I genuinely think they missed their window already.
You think this is Cold War Vegas? They're winning like 3
I think they completely missed their window.
When are they moving here?
I don't know. But if they are going to be purchasing a CDL spot, there needs to be the foresight to get this process done infinitely quicker. I obviously don't know the politics behind visas and all of that situation, but I cannot imagine that it takes many months into the season for them to get this going. They're clearly at a talent disadvantage, and being a new region in Call of Duty, coming to North America, which is obviously the premier spot to play COD, the only time in which they would have been on the same playing field as all the other 11 teams is the start of the game, when they had the ability to learn with everybody else and scrim against everybody else on an even playing field and understand how to, play respawn and S&D, whatever. The fact that they have now missed that window is probably going to destroy their season. And I don't want to be doom and gloom, but if you're going to come in at now a talent disadvantage and a knowledge disadvantage, I don't see a world in which they make any noise this year, if I'm being honest with you. I think it's great that they're there.
Yeah.
I don't see it happening.
So on my chat said, Clay said they're flying in this week. So they will get, at best, an entire week of practice before these first set of matches.
Like, you're missing weeks of, like, a genuine, I think Cap may agree with my take here, but if the only part of the season, if you are severely lacking in talent compared to the other teams, you need to be on the same knowledge playing field. The thing that makes up talent is teamwork. And if you're coming in and you don't know how the fucking game plays at the highest level, what level of teamwork are you going to be capable to beat the other teams that you're competing against in the mid pack? And who knows, Exnid might be fucking Hydra. I don't know. But barring that, like, I just don't see they missed their window at the beginning of the season.
Cap, do you agree?
Yeah. Not being here by now, I think the start of the season could be rough. I do think they could catch up. I don't know a damn thing about these players. Like, straight up, I don't know anything. So I don't know their work ethics. I don't know. I haven't heard any like rumors like, oh, teammates said this, blah, blah, blah. Like, none of that. So these guys are a blank slate to me. But there is a world where they could come here, put their head down, grind their ass off, and like catch up in that knowledge gap like Sam was talking about. And then if they do that, maybe they're decent. Maybe they're fighting for a champ spot, but I still think the talent is the disadvantage is too much. I'm not expecting much from this team. I'm kind of rooting for them because I think everyone's so down on them. I'm kind of rooting for them.
I'm rooting for them.
But I'm expecting
like the Clay new region storyline is just too good not to want to do well.
The problem is
I want them to succeed.
The problem is when they won the lead stage last year, it was game 5 grindouts where they were stealing a map 3 and they were winning 2 searches. And sometimes they were winning 2 respawns, losing that first S&D and going to game 5. But it's like their win conditions can be grinding these series out. And to your point, like I think there's skill gap to respawn. They could steal an S&D, but at best they're getting 3-0, 3-1.
I think they're just a different Miami.
Yeah.
Miami's more talented than they are, but I think it's the same situation.
Their stage 1 win total is 1.5, and on the season, it's over 4.5 is the line right now on wins. You think they're getting over 4.5 in the season? Yeah.
So why is one? Or do they have an easier? I guess they're playing Boston, so they're giving them a little bit of credit for that.
I'll go through the stages. I see.
Oh my god!
4.5 is the line right now. Bet 365.
I have to bet that.
It's
gonna be fun to root for.
Plus 100. Plus 100 if you take the over 4.5 right now.
That's fun to root for the year. They will never be dead.
That's disrespectful to Clay.
I know, but to the point of the boys.
How many did Boston win last year?
Boston last season. I don't know why my accent came out there for a second. Boston last season online won 6 matches, and did not win a single LAN match all season until EWC.
Oh my god. They got to give more than 4, man.
Well, let's take a look at their schedule, and you can tell me if you think they're getting more than 4.
Got it.
Carolina, Miami off the rip. So, not the worst week. Then you play Toronto and FaZe.
Oh, shit. That's 2-0.
Then you come back and you play OpTic, Vancouver, and Gorilla Mates.
Okay.
I don't know. 1.5 seems how I'd bookmark this. You're going to need to go good early. The next stage, Boston, Thieves, Cloud9, Minnesota, Toronto, LAG, Carolina. That's where you start to get.
I think the only time that I'll hear anything is if it's Miami or Boston. I'm like, hey,
possible. Do you get one of those? Then you
never know though against the other two. Like you know, little Neslo in there.
I don't know, dude. Well, Carolina gets Neslo'd or some crazy shit happens.
Ben, what's that 1.5 juice to on the under, bro? It's got to be like 160.
125.
I might take out a mortgage, bro. What the
minus 138 on the under 4.5 on the season.
Listen. If they get 1 win in this first qualifier, I think they can be a little bit proud of that based off the circumstances. If they get 2 wins, they might actually think that they're good.
Oh my god!
Here is what I'm going to try and do. I am going to circle back a routine in Clay, and at least for the flank side of things, I want to try and get an interview with the guys and really. Like get them on record, learn about
their players,
learn about how they are, how they really think they're going to play, like how self recognition how much self recognition they have about their situation and their realistic chances this season. And like we can kind of, I want to root for them to do good. I want there to be a story of a team like this to come in and really surprise people because they approach things.
I will say, I don't know how much Rocket League you guys watch, but Falcons are them after joining the scene not too long ago. That's all I'm saying.
How long did it take them to get there?
Rocket League.
How long
did it take? To be fucked with. I think last year was probably the first year where it was super prominent, like where Falcons was one of the best teams in the world. They always had good players, but I think last year was the first time that like a team was like absolutely unbelievable. They always had talent, but they never really put it together in like a team environment. I think last year was nuts.
Well, Vanguard
Just put
Legion
it out
went.
there.
Vanguard Legion went 2-23 according to my guy Turtle stats in the chat. So
Who?
Vanguard Legion, Vegas Legion.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That was a Tom Grab 2010
God.
team.
Yeah.
2-23.
I don't know.
RIP. I think they could do a little bit better than that. We'll see. But they're like we said earlier in this convo, they're a bottom feeder. There'll be the surprise package they figured out, but to your point, I'm curious how they look through this year by the end of it. Like when they don't qualify for champs and a couple of these guys get slammed, like are they going to go for a mixed team? Are they going to bring in their, do they have a EU challengers team right now of another 4 Saudi players? Are they going to cycle those guys in? Like I don't really know what the thought process is there, but that is all over the course of these 2 episodes. We talked about all 12 teams. Next week, which we'll probably record on Wednesdays, it's going to be a pretty consistent time going forward. We're going to go into all 12 matchups. We're going to give our thoughts on each matchup, picks and props to look out for, lines and other stuff will be posted at that point, so we'll be able to go through a lot of that. But boys, any final thoughts on like all 12 teams? Like any
Hell no. We've been here for 2 hours.
Any surprise packages? Any last thoughts? Any
Be
last
less
hot
yapping in the
takes?
future.
I mean, it wasn't that long
everyone,
of an
not
episode.
just you, Ben.
We had a lot to
Everyone's
cover,
offended by
man.
that.
It was a W episode.
It's not. It's everyone. I'd be yapping.
Oh, I know.
Sam's right. It's 2.5 hours. It's fucking.
Well, listen.
Lord.
Well, let's wrap it up. Appreciate y'all sticking around. As always, you can check us out on Anchor.fm, on Spotify, on iTunes, any podcasts are listed. Search up Scrap Time and you'll find our pod. We're also on YouTube. If you check out my channel at Benjay Nissim on YouTube, obviously, we're going to be streaming this. The new consistent time is going to be Wednesdays. We got to pick a time on Wednesdays. We're probably lunchtime-ish, either as East Coast or West Coast. We'll be live every Wednesday, and so you'll be able to catch up on VOD Wednesday after Thursday morning. As always, appreciate you guys tuning in. Let us know feedback. We're just starting off on this, and we'll pick this back up after Thanksgiving. Previewing week 1, so appreciate you locking in. We'll see you guys on the other side. Thank you so much.